Chapter 278. The Northern Demon Area was an evil place. The demonic nature that made people's hearts palpitate seemed to be everywhere. It was as if this place had been separated from the Tongue-Long continent and became a different world. It could be said that this was a heaven for demons, but it was the territory of other cultivators. There was a famous saying in the Tongue-Long continent that was, whoever wanted to become a demon, go to the Northern Demon Area. Some people said that the reason why the Northern Demon Area could exist was because the source of the demonic nature could not be eliminated. But where was the source of the demonic nature? No one knew. In an old primitive forest close to the fallen god sea in the Northern Demon Area, Gu Fei encountered great danger. The sky had already darkened. The arrival of the night made the old primitive forest seem even more eerie. The forest at night was much more dangerous than the forest during the day. Some things that liked to be active at night began to move. Gu Fei stopped in a bamboo forest. He used his palm like a knife and cut off the incomparably hard bamboo. Then he sharpened the bamboo and made it into sharp bamboo spears. He wanted to set up a trap. He wanted to let those people who were following him like dog-skin plaster know that he was not to be trifled with. Setting up a trap was an extremely easy thing for Gu Fei. When he was cultivating in Taishan Mountain, he often went into the depths of the mountain to fight with those fierce beasts. When he encountered some strong beasts, Gu Fei used a trap to deal with them. Of course, humans were not beasts. It was not easy to trick those who were following him, especially those transcending mortality, realm demon masters. Gu Fei knew that his traps were useless against them. He did not want to use traps to deal with demon masters. He wanted to deal with those awakening mortality, realm demon cultivators, and those annoying barbarian dogs. Suddenly, a few loud and clear eagle cries rang out in the sky. Gu Fei abruptly raised his head and looked through the gaps between the bamboo leaves. He saw 3 huge black shadows circling in the dark sky where not even the slightest bit of star could be seen. They caught up so quickly. Gu Fei was a little surprised. At this time, Gu Fei had just finished setting up the last trap. Then, without any hesitation, he rushed into the depths of the bamboo forest. Soon, a slight rustling sound came from the forest outside the bamboo forest. It was the sound of something moving in the forest. Following that, a few black shadows walked out from the forest. They had black fur and a pair of dark red, ferocious eyes that emitted a frightening light. Their ears were especially long, and their noses were especially large, taking up 2/3 of their entire faces. This was a fierce and vicious beast, a species that only existed in the extreme North Demon region. This was a demonized creature. Its body was a full 3 meters long, and its 4 limbs were short and thick. This was a barbarian dog, a wild beast that excelled at tracking. In the extreme Northern Demon region, there were many people who captured these wild beasts and raised them like little dogs that obeyed their orders. A barbarian dog was not a vicious beast. In fact, it couldn't even be considered a vicious beast. It could only be considered a fierce beast, and it wasn't even the most fierce of beasts. However, the barbarian dog's tracking ability caused it to be favored by demonic path cultivators. In just a short while, 7 or 8 barbarian hounds walked out from the surrounding forest. However, these barbarian hounds seemed to be able to sense the danger within the bamboo forest. They only growled softly outside the bamboo forest, not daring to walk into it. These barbarians had tracked them here, and the demonic path cultivators had also arrived nearby. The loud and clear eagle cries sounded out once more. The howling of the wind came from above the forest. The forest was violently swayed by the strong winds that swept down from the sky. 3 black giant eagles descended from the sky. Each giant eagle had a wingspan of 30 to 40 feet, and on the back of each giant eagle stood a black figure. Their giant wings stirred up strong gusts of wind. The arrival of the giant eagles caused a commotion among the barbarians outside the bamboo forest. They began to anxiously growl. "What a cunning fellow! On the head of the giant eagle stood a gloomy Chu Gu. He had already led a group of subordinates to pursue Gu Fei in the forest for several hours, but they still hadn't been able to do anything to him. What was even more hateful was that after this fellow heavily injured the distant fire sword demon Zhao Xuanji, he had set up a vicious trap in the forest while he was escaping, causing several of his people to die. Of course, those who died were all low-level cultivators. But Chu Gu felt that he had been fooled by Gu Fei. This made Chu Gu seethe with anger, and he vowed to tear Gu Fei to pieces. 10 black figures silently walked out from the forest, standing to the side in fear and trepidation. Chu Gu didn't even look at these people. Instead, he rode the giant eagle into the sky and flew deep into the bamboo forest. The other 2 giant eagles followed closely behind Chu Gu, with 3 demonic masters chasing after him. Gu Fei could only retreat. Facing 3 demonic masters at the transcending mortality realm, he had no chance of winning. Should we go in? Outside the bamboo forest, after Chu Gu left, a demonic cultivator whispered. His voice was so soft that he almost couldn't hear it. The others were silent. No one spoke, and no one dared to leave. After a while, these people became a little restless. No one doubted Chu Ji's methods. He was a ruthless and decisive person. But the people following behind Gu Fei knew that they were carrying out an extremely dangerous task. If they weren't careful, they could lose their lives. Even if they knew that they were being used as cannon fodder by their master, Chu Gu, they didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. This was the sorrow of the weak. They couldn't control their own fate. One of them pointed forward. The 7 or 8 barbarian dogs immediately growled in a low voice, as if they were very unwilling, and walked into the bamboo forest. Using the barbarian dogs to scout ahead, there was nothing to fear even if there were any traps ahead. With the barbarian dogs blocking for them, even if a few barbarian dogs died, it didn't matter. At most, they would have to train a few more. If they lost their lives, everything would be over. These people spread out and carefully followed the barbarian dog into the bamboo forest. Soon, the barking of the barbarian dogs and the exclamations of the demonic cultivators could be heard from the bamboo forest. They couldn't avoid triggering the traps in the bamboo forest. I clearly sensed that Brat's aura appearing here. Why did he suddenly disappear? Chu Gu, who was riding on the giant eagle, roared as he rushed into the depths of the bamboo forest. His angry voice echoed in the bamboo forest. Chu Gu suffered unimaginable injuries on God Demon Island. The demon infant was devoured by the nameless demon, and his physical body was destroyed. It could be said that it was an absolutely fatal attack. Fortunately, he cultivated a second primordial spirit, which prevented him from being killed on the spot by the nameless demon on God Demon Island. He was lucky enough to escape the calamity of being annihilated. However, although he didn't die and survived, his cultivation fell from the peak of the void-controlling realm to the 6th layer of the transcending mortality realm. However, it was also a blessing in disguise. As long as he completely refined the remnant of the demon blood in his body, he believed that his cultivation would recover soon. He might even be able to break through the bottleneck and enter the half-demon realm. However, before that, he must eliminate one person, and that person was Gu Fei. Gu Fei's improvement was too fast. With such an enemy existing, Chu Gu couldn't eat or sleep in peace. Under Chu Ji's ferocious might, the 2 demonic cultivators on the eagle's back trembled with fear. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Search. Search for me, even if you have to turn this place upside down. You must drag that brat out for me. Chu Gu roared loudly and directly raised his hand. A terrifying dark red blood light rushed out of his hand and shrouded the bamboo forest below. Under the shroud of the blood light, the bamboo forest silently crumbled and turned into countless pieces. Then, those pieces continued to crumble under the blood light and turned into dust. The bamboo forest, with a circumference of 20 zhang, disappeared just like that. Chu Ji's action startled the 2 demonic cultivators. They hurriedly stepped on the giant eagles and dispersed, searching the sky above the bamboo forest. The 3 demonic cultivators stood on the back of the eagles, and from time to time, they cast demonic techniques and bombarded the bamboo forest continuously. Terrifying energy ripples spread throughout the bamboo forest. The depths of the bamboo forest suddenly became chaotic, causing some of the ferocious beasts living in the bamboo forest to flee in all directions. No one knew that in the distance there was a pair of eyes closely watching the situation in the sky above the bamboo forest. The 3 giant eagles flew very low, almost sticking close to the bamboo forest. However, Chu-gu and the others intentionally or unintentionally maintained a certain distance. The 3 of them didn't stray too far away from each other. These guys really know how to put on a show. This pretense is just to lure me into attacking. Gu Fei hid among the bamboo leaves in the distance and coldly watched the scene in the sky above the bamboo forest. Chu Ji's rage and the panic of the 2 demonic cultivators were just a smokescreen. Their goal couldn't be clearer. They wanted Gu Fei, who was hiding in the dark, to think that the people on his side had let down their guard. This was to lure Gu Fei into attacking them. In fact, Chu-gu and the others had already been secretly accumulating power and waiting. As soon as Gu Fei appeared, they would immediately launch a thunderous attack on Gu Fei. If Gu Fei couldn't even see through such a trick, then there was no need for him to mingle in the world of cultivation. In that case, I will beat them at their own game. Gu Fei sneered in his heart. Then he quietly slid down the bamboo and stealthily moved towards Chu-gu and the others. The power of the inner space could isolate one's aura. This was how Gu Fei had suddenly disappeared from under the noses of Chu-gu and the others. However, it had to be said that the noses and ears of the barbaric dogs were too sensitive. They were still following closely behind him. Coupled with the giant eagles flying in the sky, it was difficult for Gu Fei to completely shake off the people chasing after him. Most importantly, ever since he had seriously injured Zhao Xuanji, the sword soul had extracted 50% of the warrior's qi in his body. This made it difficult for him to launch a surprise attack on Chu-gu and the others in a short period of time. If he had known that it would cause such a big problem, he would have shown his trump card on the ship and killed that guy. At this time, Gu Fei couldn't help but feel a little regretful. He didn't know that the guy was Chu-gu, the first son of the demon monarch of 6 paths. After several hours of fleeing, Gu Fei's consumed yuan qi was gradually recovering. Therefore, he thought of using the nameless sword soul in his body. The 3 giant eagles were only a few hundred feet apart. As long as one of them was attacked, the other 2 would be able to arrive in an instant. It seemed that they had let down their guard, but in fact, the 3 of them were more cautious than ever. Could it be that Gu Fei has already left the bamboo forest? After an hour, Chu-gu and the others still hadn't found anything. However, the barbaric dogs and the giant eagles had tracked him into the bamboo forest, so Gu Fei should be nearby. Chu-gu and the others had no doubts about the tracking ability of the barbaric dogs. Moreover, the 3 giant eagles under their feet had eyes as sharp as lightning. They were best at capturing creatures on the ground, so there was no reason for them to be wrong about the giant eagles. Through cultivation, humans' 6 senses would become extremely sensitive, and they would obtain all kinds of magical powers. However, compared to the magical powers of some beasts, they were still a little inferior. Of course, if a human's cultivation had reached the divine transcendence realm, they would be able to observe things down to the smallest detail. Everything in the sky and on the ground would be imprinted in their minds, which was something that no beast could compare to. However, Chu-gu, whose cultivation had fallen and even his demon infant had been devoured, had lost all his magical powers. He had to rely on beasts to track Gu Fei, which really made him very depressed. If it was in the past, Chu-gu could have killed a large number of cultivators like Gu Fei with a wave of his hand. Why would he need to go through so much trouble now? Moreover, he had suffered a lot of losses. However, just when Chu Gu and the others had almost searched the surrounding area and thought that Gu Fei had already escaped, the long-awaited attack appeared. When a giant eagle flew over a clump of bamboo at a low altitude, bang! With a bang, the dense bamboo leaves suddenly burst open, and a figure rushed out from the bamboo, leaves that filled the sky like a ghost. Roar! Chu Gu and the other demon master roared angrily at the same time, their bodies leaping up from the eagle's back at almost the same time. In an instant, they crossed a distance of more than 100 feet and rushed towards the demon master who was being attacked. However, just as Chu Gu and the other demon master leaped off the eagle's back, a shrill eagle cry sounded. A purple light had already pierced through the giant eagle's body from bottom to top, and directly pierced the right soul of the demon master who was standing on the eagle's back. Ah! In the midst of the scream, the demon master who had been nailed to the eagle's back by the purple sword light, his entire right leg suddenly exploded. The giant eagle under his feet was also torn into two by the peerless sword light, and a large amount of stinking hot blood burst out. That demon master had never thought that Gu Fei's attack would be so fierce. Even the giant eagle under his feet was instantly dismembered, and he was already severely injured before he could even take out his magic treasure. Die! At this time, Chu Gu had already killed his way forward. With a roar, he directly struck out with his strongest killing move. The entire area of space shook, and a vast power shook the void. The destructive ripples of space surged towards the figure who was shrouded in the sky, full of blood. 6 paths of void, shattering the vault of heaven. This was the strongest magical power that Chu Gu could currently use. Even the 2 demon masters were shocked, and they could not care about attacking Gu Fei anymore and hurriedly dodged. A terrifying power sealed the void, trapping the figure who was bathed in blood. Chapter 279. Chu Ji's demon path divine art was not powerful enough to annihilate the void, but the tearing force produced by the violent vibration of the space was enough to tear Gu Fei to pieces. Although Gu Fei had severely injured a demon master, he had also encountered great danger. Roar! Gu Fei let out a furious roar. His hair fluttered wildly as he waved the materialized sword soul in his hand, breaking through the layers of destructive fluctuations and rushing out. Ah! He landed in the bamboo forest and spat out a mouthful of blood. He did not dare to stay, and rushed into the dense bamboo forest. At the same time, the sword spirit in his hand disappeared into his body. At this time, the demon master whose right leg had been destroyed by Gu Fei jumped as if he was flying and chased after Gu Fei. The demon master was also very tough. He endured the pain, gritted his teeth, and used a spell to freeze the wound on his right leg, so that the rapid loss of blood would not endanger his body. Although he had lost his right leg, the demon master's cultivation did not seem to be affected much. He only had his left leg left, but he quickly closed in behind Gu Fei. Wind, rise! The demon master let out a low shout, and his hands danced in a mysterious trajectory. Suddenly, an extremely fierce gust of wind appeared out of nowhere in the bamboo forest. Amidst the gale were countless transparent wind blades that slashed towards Gu Fei in an overwhelming manner. The nearby bamboos were either cut by the wind blades or uprooted by the gale and swept into the sky. The demon master had been seriously injured by Gu Fei's sneak attack. He had lost his right leg, and his body was also injured. He wanted to cut Gu Fei into pieces to relieve the hatred in his heart. Feeling the sudden explosion of terrifying energy behind him, and the terrible sound that sounded like countless ghosts breaking through the air, Gu Fei's hair stood on end. Without hesitation, he used the desolation steps and dashed forward like a bolt of lightning. The bamboos in his way were all shattered by his protective aura. Behind him, countless wind blades whistled towards Gu Fei. Under the cover of the wind blades, the bamboo was cut into thousands of pieces and fell to the ground. Gu Fei used the 8 desolation steps to the extreme, and he quickly passed through the bamboo forest like a phantom. With one step, he disappeared, and in the next moment he was already 300 to 400 feet away. The countless transparent wind blades that were aimed at Gu Fei all missed. Gu Fei's speed was too fast. Among the practitioners of the same level, no one could beat him. Demon thunder shakes the 9 heavens. A loud shout came from above the bamboo forest. Then, the sound of thunder shook the heavens and the earth. Streaks of black lightning, as thick as a child's arm, tore through the void and bombarded Gu Fei, who was moving rapidly below. A heart-palpitating destructive aura spread out. The other Devil Master had already caught up to Gu Fei on his giant eagle. As he raised his hands, rumbling sounds could be heard. Bolts of black lightning appeared above his hands and bombarded Gu Fei. Boom! 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 Large swathes of the bamboo forest were turned into ashes by the furious lightning. Smoke and dust rose into the sky, and the entire forest shook. An extremely cold and gloomy aura began to spread out. The black lightning seemed to contain a frighteningly cold aura. Gu Fei, who was quickly traversing through the forest, was in a perilous situation. He constantly dodged the wind blades coming from behind and had to unleash the destructive lightning bolts that fell from the sky. Right now, he didn't have any strength to fight back and was in a passive situation. Using the sword soul just now consumed a lot of Yuan Qi. Facing the joint attack of 2 Devil Masters, Gu Fei couldn't resist, so he could only escape. At that moment, Chu Ge, whose magical ability had been broken by Gu Fei, leaped onto the eagle's back with a furious roar and commanded the giant eagle to chase after Gu Fei. Even if Gu Fei was at his peak, it would be difficult for him to resist the joint attack of 3 transcending mortality realm Devil Masters. Escaping was the only choice. This wasn't a coward's action, but a wise one. Gu Fei's extreme speed 8 steps allowed him to gradually widen the distance between him and the one-legged fellow. However, the 2 fellows in the sky were still hot on his tail. Sky Devil's saber. Chu Ji's aura was like a rainbow. From afar, he shouted and unleashed a demonic, blood-colored saber light at Gu Fei. The incomparably sharp, blood-colored saber Qi chased after Gu Fei as if it could shatter the void. Everywhere it passed, the trees collapsed and terrifying saber marks were left on the ground. Although Chu Ge didn't have the world's #1 devil saber in hand, the saber Qi he unleashed was as terrifying as a divine weapon. Of course, unless it was the flying sword of an expert swordsman like Zhao Xuanji. This level of saber Qi could no longer cause substantial damage to Gu Fei's strong body. However, when the saber Qi struck his body, Gu Fei was still in unbearable pain. In fact, Chu Ge more or less knew about Gu Fei's background. He knew that this level of attack could not hurt Gu Fei, but his goal was not to hurt Gu Fei but to slow him down. However, Chu Ge had miscalculated. Gu Fei's speed in the forest did not slow down because of this. As the chase continued, Gu Fei rushed out of the dense bamboo forest and then plunged into an even denser forest. Soon, he had left the one-legged demon master behind. Gu Fei had the initiative in this chase because he was the one running away. He had the final say in which direction and where to run. Therefore, although Chu Ge and the other demon master rode the giant eagle in the air, it was difficult for them to stop Gu Fei. Both of them were very fast. In just a short while, they had chased each other for hundreds of miles. Those barbaric dogs had long been left far behind by Gu Fei. Rumble, bolts of black lightning struck down at Gu Fei amidst the rumbling of thunder. The fiend master, who had cast the black supreme demon thunder, was still controlling the lightning and bombarding Gu Fei below. The sound of thunder shook the forest and frightened the animals in the forest into fleeing in all directions. Damn it! Gu Fei was extremely angry. He quickly flashed through the forest to avoid the black lightning that fell from the sky. He could ignore Chu Ji's sky demon saber Qi, but he could not ignore the supreme demon thunder that was filled with a destructive aura. The power of this demon thunder was secondary. The most worrying thing was the supreme Een demon, Qi, contained in the demon thunder. The cold Qi emitted by this demon Qi would slow down the circulation of Gu Fei's Qi and blood. If he was struck by the Een thunder, Gu Fei was in danger of being frozen in an instant. As he was avoiding the Een thunder, Gu Fei suddenly heard the faint sound of water falling from the sky to his left. He quickly changed his direction and rushed in the direction of the sound. Chu Gu and the demon master also changed their direction. They rode the giant eagle and chased after Gu Fei. Soon, a river appeared before Gu Fei's eyes. Without a second thought, he dashed downstream. The sound of a waterfall could be heard from the front. At this time, Chu Gu and the other demon master, who were standing on the back of the eagle, felt that something was wrong. This guy seemed to want to use the water to escape. In this way, the scent on Gu Fei's body would be washed away by the water. Even the barbaric dogs would not be able to track Gu Fei. "Stop him!" Chu Gu shouted. He then commanded the giant eagle to charge forward like an arrow. The demon master, who was standing on the other giant eagle, immediately launched an even more ferocious attack at Chu Gu. Thunder shook the sky. The black lightning seemed to tear apart the heaven and earth, shaking the void. A violent aura of destruction swept out. The place that was struck by the demon thunder was surrounded by a layer of black ice. Gu Fei used his extreme speed of 8 steps. Every step he took was like teleportation. He disappeared in an instant, and the next moment he was already 300 to 400 feet away. Before the supreme Een demon thunder hit him, he had already appeared in another place. It was difficult to track his movement, so it was difficult to hit him. Chu Gu drove the giant eagle forward quickly. However, although the giant eagle's flying speed was fast, it was not as fast as Gu Fei's extreme speed of 8 steps. The rumbling sound of water could already be heard in front of him. A layer of water vapor could be seen rising in front of him. Even in the dark night, it was very conspicuous. The cold wind was chilly and the water vapor was everywhere. A large river seemed to have been suddenly cut in half. The horizon suddenly sank and a 1,000-foot waterfall surged down. The sound of water was deafening. Gu Fei did not care about anything else. He dodged the black lightning and then rushed out of the waterfall under the unwilling gazes of Chu Gu and the demon master. Hearing Chu Ji's furious roar coming from behind him, Gu Fei, who had charged out of the waterfall, felt the water hit his face and a cool feeling spread across his body. Then his entire body began to rapidly fall. At this moment, an eagle's cry suddenly came from above. 2 huge black figures also rushed out of the waterfall. Gu Fei was shocked. Only now did he realize that rushing out of the waterfall and letting his body fly was a stupid move. Die! A cold voice came from above. Chu Gu and the other demon master attacked mercilessly. Terrifying magical techniques and black lightning bombarded Gu Fei mercilessly. The terrifying power converged into a destructive wave, ready to devour Gu Fei. A great sense of danger surged in his heart. Gu Fei's long hair stood on end. There was no time for him to think as he directly strode forward in the air. Swish! 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 A series of shadows flashed in the void. Gu Fei was like an arrow released from a bow. He rushed down the waterfall. 8 steps. Gu Fei changed his position in the void. He wanted to avoid all the attacks. However, he was not on land. There was no leverage under his feet. Although he could change his position in the void, the distance he could move was limited. Just as Gu Fei was about to fall into the deep pool of the 1,000-foot waterfall, a black lightning bolt as thick as a child's arm struck his body. Plop! With a sound, Gu Fei smashed into the water. In the turbulent river, there was only a small splash. Gu Fei's figure disappeared in the water. Chapter 280. The 1,000-foot waterfall poured down in torrents, like a white chain falling from the 9 heavens. The rumbling of the water was deafening, and the current was rapid. Gu Fei, who had fallen under the waterfall, was instantly swept away by the current. Hazy water vapor enveloped an area of several acres, like a ball of steam rolling and surging. Two huge black shadows circled in the sky. They were two giant eagles. On the back of the giant eagle, Chu Ji's eyes shone brightly, as if he could see through the void and sweep his gaze downward. He did not think that Gu Fei would die after being struck by the supreme Yin demon thunder. If he was dead, he wanted to see his corpse. If he was alive, he wanted to see him. If he was dead, he wanted to see his corpse. Without seeing Gu Fei's corpse with his own eyes, Chu Gu could not sit still. However, in the dark night, under the waterfall, the surging water made it difficult to find Gu Fei's figure. Just as Chu Gu was about to jump into the waterfall to search for Gu Fei, the sound of wind and thunder suddenly came from the turbulent pool below. Two spots of light suddenly appeared in the pool, quickly approaching the surface of the water. Then, a huge black shadow appeared in the pool below. Boom! With a bang, the entire waterfall exploded, and a huge black shadow rushed out from the water. A terrifying, murderous aura instantly filled the space between the heavens and the earth. Roar! With an earth-shattering roar, a huge sharp claw directly grabbed at the giant eagle circling above the waterfall. The giant eagle seemed to be scared silly, and its huge body swayed, almost falling from the sky. Oh no! The sudden change of events caused the demon master on the eagle's back to turn pale. Without thinking, he leaped from the eagle's back and rushed toward the shore. Just as the demon master leaped off the eagle's back, a mournful cry of the eagle rang out. Pum! The giant claw directly smashed the eagle into a mist of blood. The demon master who had leaped off the eagle's back did not manage to escape either. A huge black shadow swept towards him like lightning. The demon master did not even have the time to scream before he followed in the footsteps of the giant eagle. His entire body was struck and turned into a bloody mist. Not only was his physical body instantly shattered, but even the devil core in his body did not have time to fly away. Together with his physical body, it was instantly smashed, and his body and soul were destroyed. Whew! A gust of wind suddenly rose, and the water vapor above the waterfall surged like a cloud. From time to time, a hazy black figure appeared in the cloud. One could vaguely see a huge, meandering body slowly swimming in the clouds. Its shiny black scales were clearly visible. This is... Chu Ji's breathing suddenly quickened, as if he was suffocating. He had never imagined that there would be a legendary demonic beast at the bottom of the waterfall pool. Suddenly, a gigantic dragon had passed through the cloud and stared at the man and the eagle on the opposite side. Chu Gu could feel that the giant eagle under his feet was trembling. The giant eagle was afraid. It was afraid of the terrifying demonic beast above the waterfall. It was a flood dragon. The aura of the flood dragon made the giant eagle extremely frightened. It could no longer fly normally and was about to fall from the sky, as if it could fall from the sky at any time. The head of the flood dragon with two forked dragon horns was extremely ferocious. A pair of ferocious eyes flashed with a frightening light as it glanced at Chu Gu, as if it could attack Chu Gu at any time. This insignificant human actually dared to break into its territory. This flood dragon was obviously very angry. Therefore, as soon as it appeared, it killed the giant eagle and the demon master on the back of the giant eagle with lightning speed. A demonic beast of the Imperial Void Realm. Chu Ji's expression changed. This is going to be troublesome. He never thought that he would encounter a demonic beast of the Imperial Void Realm here. A demonic beast of this level could fly in the air and had already unlocked its spiritual wisdom. Its intelligence was no less than that of a human. Run! Without any hesitation, Chu Gu leaped from the back of the eagle with lightning speed and rushed towards the forest on the shore. He had no choice but to escape. A demonic beast of the Imperial Void Realm, and a flood dragon at that. If he did not escape, there would only be one outcome, and that was death. Roar! An earth-shattering roar came from behind Chu Ge. The rolling sound waves shook his ears and made his ears buzz. He only felt that the world was spinning and his blood and qi were tumbling. The rumbling sound of wind and thunder followed. A huge danger was surging towards Chu Ge from behind. Without looking, he knew that the flood dragon behind him had made a move. The shrill cry of the eagle rang in the night. It was so ear-piercing. The flood dragon directly killed the giant eagle on Chu Ji's back. In an instant, it caught up with Gu Fei. The giant dragon claw that was emitting a frightening black light directly clawed at Chu Ji's head. Demonic beasts of the Imperial Void Realm were really too powerful. With their powerful fleshly bodies, tyrannical strength, and terrifying divine abilities, even human cultivators of the Imperial Void Realm would have a headache if they were to encounter such terrifying demonic beasts. If Chu Ge was still at the peak of the Imperial Void Realm, he could still fight with this flood dragon. But now, Chu Ji's cultivation had fallen to the transcending mortality realm. He was completely not a match for the flood dragon. Seeing that Chu Ge was about to be smashed into a blood mist by the flood dragon's claw, a layer of demonic bloodlight suddenly gushed out from his body. At the moment when his body was about to be smashed by the dragon's claw, he suddenly disappeared into thin air. No, it shouldn't be that he disappeared into thin air. It was because Chu Ji's speed had suddenly increased to an unimaginable level. It was so fast that it was hard to see with the naked eye. That was why there was an illusion that he disappeared into thin air. In the next moment, Chu Ji's figure that was shrouded in blood light appeared 100 feet away. It could be said that his speed was godly, much faster than Gu Fei's 8 steps extreme speed. Roar! Seeing that Chu Ge actually escaped from its claw, the flood dragon couldn't help but be furious. It roared at Chu Ge and rode on the clouds, turning into a black lightning as it chased after Chu Ge. Chu Ge hurriedly bit the tip of his tongue and fiercely spat out a mouthful of blood essence. That mouthful of blood essence instantly enveloped Chu Ge. Then, as if it was burning, it burst out with a dazzling, demonic bloodlight. He used the demonic blood flight escape technique to turn into a bloodlight and instantly disappeared into the distance. The speed was so fast that it was simply unimaginable. The flood dragon knew that it couldn't catch up to him. It roared continuously in the air, scaring the birds and beasts in the surrounding area and causing them to flee in all directions. The forest was suddenly in chaos. After a while, the flood dragon retreated back into the deep pool of the waterfall. Hundreds of miles away, Chu Ge stopped in a valley with a pale face. Using the demonic blood flight escape technique had greatly injured Chu Ji's vitality. It was as if all the energy in his body had been sucked out, causing him to feel like he was about to collapse. In this world, there was no such thing as a free harvest. If Chu Ge wanted to escape from the flood dragon's claws, he had to use his own blood essence to activate the demonic blood flight escape technique. He had no other choice. Chu Ge only felt a sharp pain throughout his body. His skin and flesh were once again covered in bloody scars. The violent energy in his body seemed to show signs of flaring up again. The power of the demonic god's blood had already been mostly refined by him, but it still hadn't completely fused with his own blood essence. This was like burying a lightning bolt in his body that could explode at any time. As long as he didn't completely refine the demonic god's blood, the power of the demonic god's blood would still be a hidden danger in his body that could endanger his life. It seems that I have no choice but to go into seclusion. Chu Ge was very clear that it was time to deal with the situation in his body. But that Gu Fei, I should ask that person to take action. Thinking of this, Chu Ge stretched out his right hand and a black token immediately appeared in his palm. It was an ancient token with some ancient patterns engraved on it. A layer of hazy black gas lingered around the token. Then, a ray of light shot out from between Chu Ji's eyebrows and into the token. Go, Chu Gu waved his hand, and the token turned into a faint black light that shot into the sky. It flew towards the southeast and disappeared into the night sky in the blink of an eye. After doing all this, Chu Gu walked out of the valley and headed towards his own place of cultivation. The demonic palace of the Six Paths 10,000-mile communication talisman was not inferior to the Tao sect's fire talisman and flying sword messenger. The dim black light flew rapidly in the sky, covering thousands of miles in an instant. Thousands of miles to the southeast, there was a small town. In a courtyard in the town, there was a pavilion by the lake. There were a few people drinking and chatting merrily. Suddenly, one of the youths seemed to have sensed something. He put down his wine cup and walked out of the pavilion. The others in the pavilion were surprised and followed him out of the pavilion. At this moment, the youth looked at the sky and waved his hand. Immediately, a dim black light appeared in the dusky sky and flew towards the direction of the courtyard. In the blink of an eye, it landed in the youth's hand and floated above his palm. A simple and unadorned token appeared in the youth's palm. This youth was dressed in white and had a smile on his face. He had a graceful demeanor and looked like a young master. However, this youth's eyebrows were a little different from the others. They were two red eyebrows. Second young master, this is... A youth in purple behind the youth asked in surprise. The others also had a look of surprise on their faces. It was obvious that these people knew what the token floating above the youth's palm was. He actually used the 10,000-mile messenger to send a message to the palace. Is he really in big trouble? The youth with red eyebrows smiled and then directly probed into the token with his divine thought. The youth quickly withdrew his divine thought. His expression changed several times. No one knew what he was thinking. After a while, he murmured to himself, "Who is Gu Fei? Why does he want that person to go and kill him? Who is Gu Fei? I've never heard of him. Do you know this person? Is he a new master?" The people behind the youth whispered to each other, but no one knew who Gu Fei was. The youth with red eyebrows knew very well that if the people behind him did not know who Gu Fei was, then no one in the entire northern demon region would know who Gu Fei was. The youth with red eyebrows looked at the token that was surrounded by black gas and frowned. Then, with a wave of his hand, the token immediately turned into a ray of black light and shot into the sky. In an instant, it disappeared into the southeast horizon. Not long after, a demonic shadow rushed out of the 6 demon palaces and rode a demonic cloud towards the northwest. Chapter 281. Something interesting is going to happen in the Lost Forest. Are you guys interested in watching the show? In the courtyard of the small town, the youth with red eyebrows smiled as he turned around and said to the young men in luxurious clothes, "Something interesting?" The young man in purple rubbed his nose and said with a smile, "If it's related to your big brother, I think we should forget about it." "Yes, second young master, we haven't had our fill yet. We won't go home until we're drunk tonight." The other young men called the youth with red eyebrows and walked into the pavilion. Although the scarlet-browed youth was still smiling as if nothing had happened, an imperceptible cold light flashed across his eyes. Then he walked into the pavilion and continued to drink with the other youths, chatting cheerfully and wittily. Before Gu Fei fell into the water, he was struck by the demon master on the eagle's back with the supreme Een demon lightning. The powerful power of the lightning caused his entire body to be numb. Then, the destructive black current flowed through his body, making him feel as if his entire body was being torn apart. At this moment, his powerful physical body fully displayed its advantage. Even though he was attacked by the extremely violent lightning, Gu Fei still maintained his consciousness and his limbs did not become stiff. He felt himself floating and sinking in the water, tossing and turning as he was washed down by the rapid current. What really made Gu Fei feel danger was not the violent lightning, but the supreme Een demon chi contained in the supreme Een demon lightning. This extremely cold demon chi invaded Gu Fei's body along with the lightning, passing through his muscles, bones, blood, and meridians, destroying Gu Fei's physical body. It almost froze the blood and qi in his body, turning him into a cold corpse. Fortunately, Gu Fei's physical body had been tempered thousands of times. His blood, flesh, tendons, and bones had been continuously refined and smelted with a large amount of yuan qi. Under the stimulation of the supreme Yin demon qi, Gu Fei's tendons, bones, and flesh continuously shook, releasing waves of pure yuan qi to resist the demon qi. Gu Fei didn't know how long he had been floating in the water for, but with his cultivation at the third sky of the ascended realm, he could stay underwater for a long time without any problems. When a mouthful of turbid water was stuck in his chest, Gu Fei climbed out of the river and carefully walked into the dense forest by the river. He tried his best not to leave any traces behind as he passed by. After walking in the forest for about an hour, Gu Fei was already far away from the river. However, at this time, the Yin qi emitted by the Tying devil qi in his body became stronger and stronger. Gu Fei realized that the yuan qi in his body seemed to be unable to suppress the sinister power. His limbs gradually became stiff. This was not a good sign. If he did not find a place to expel the extreme Yin devil qi from his body, he would be in danger of freezing. Such powerful demonic energy. Gu Fei couldn't help but be secretly surprised. For a moment, he could not find an absolutely safe place to circulate his mysterious qi and expel the cold energy from his body. He carefully walked through the forest. Finally, he walked into the depths of the forest and easily killed a powerful beast. Then he directly sat down against a large tree where the beast was entrenched. The place where the beast appeared had the aura of the beast. Other beasts did not dare to enter the territory of the beast. Therefore, other than those who were chasing after him, this was the safest place. Gu Fei circulated his mysterious qi and triggered the yuan qi in his body. Black qi gradually appeared on the surface of his body, and his body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of hazy and dark mist. At the same time, the essence of heaven and earth continuously gathered. The spiritual energy in the forest was dense, and there was a faint glow in between. The Tying devil qi that Gu Fei had forced out of his body was gradually dispersed by the gathered energy. Gu Fei was very clear that he was not out of danger. Now his first task was to recover as soon as possible, and then deal with the pursuit of the people of the Devil Dao. He circulated his martial arts and used the 5 elements yuan qi in his body as a guide to communicate with the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. He guided the essence of the sun and moon and the essence of the wood into his body and began to expel the extreme Yin devil qi from his body. As time passed, the aura in Gu Fei's body gradually began to flourish. The essence that gathered from all directions entered Gu Fei's body, and the traces of demonic energy were constantly forced out. On the road of martial arts, after the cultivation was successful, one could also use the power of heaven and earth for one's own use. This was the so-called divine skill of the body, communicating with the inside and outside of the world, complementing each other. Unknowingly, a layer of ice appeared on Gu Fei's body. As time passed, the ice on Gu Fei's body became thicker and thicker. Finally, his whole body was sealed in ice. The forest was filled with cold air. A strange gray fog with a hint of darkness gradually spread out with the ice as the center, causing the forest to seem like a miasma. Time always passed unknowingly. At noon, the sun was in the middle of the sky. However, the sun in the sky, no matter how you looked at it, was a little different from other places. It was blurry and unreal, as if there was a layer of something blocking it. The sun in the sky gave people a feeling that it was half covered by a pipa. The most common scene of the sun shining on the earth was absolutely rare in the extreme North Demon region. The sunlight seemed to be unable to shine directly down. No one could analyze this phenomenon. The extreme North Demon region was located in the extreme north of the Tonglong continent. Although the climate was harsh, some places were not bitterly cold. The Lost Forest was a wild forest with a circumference of thousands of miles. This forest was close to the fallen god sea. The climate here was not the same as other places in the extreme North Demon region, which were all bitterly cold. It was not cold here. On the contrary, it was a little hot. In the extreme North Demon region, there were few places that were not covered by the bitter cold. In the dense forest, no one knew how many ferocious beasts and monstrous beasts lived. But what was certain was that in the Lost Forest, danger lurked everywhere. People who walked in, if they were not careful, they would never come out. This was a dangerous place. Of course, compared to the other dangerous places in the extreme North Demon region, the Lost Forest was already a relatively safe place. As long as they did not go deep into the forest, most people could walk out of this forest alive, because it was the only forest area in the extreme North Demon region. There are countless birds and beasts living in it. At the same time, there were all kinds of spiritual plants growing. There were countless cultivation resources that cultivators needed. Therefore, some low-level demonic cultivators often formed hunting teams and ventured into the Lost Forest to hunt ferocious beasts. Then they used the beast skins and the beast crystals condensed from the ferocious beasts to exchange for the cultivation resources they needed. The cultivation environment in the extreme North Demon region was very harsh. Everywhere was cold and barren, and there was a lack of cultivation resources. This was especially true for those rogue cultivators who did not rely on any of the major demonic cultivators. If they wanted to obtain the cultivation resources they needed, they would have to obtain them themselves or exchange them with others. In this hot and stuffy noon, there was a group of people carefully walking through the forest. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man who carried a large axe on his shoulder. The strong man was 9 feet tall, and he wore an old yellowish-brown leather armor. He had a full beard that was like a halberd, and his entire person looked extremely fierce, like a lion. Behind the middle-aged man, there were 4 people. One was a short old man. One was a long-haired beauty wearing black leather armor. One was a skinny young man, and the last one was a handsome young man wearing green clothes with a sword in his arms. This was a very strange team, no matter how one looked at it. It was a strange combination. With just a glance, one could tell that these 5 people were people who had temporarily come together because of something. The beautiful woman, the old man, the strong man, the young man, the old man, the middle-aged man, and the young man, 3 different generations of people, were all gathered together. The strong man with the beard opened the way in front. When he encountered any debris that blocked the way, he would sweep it away with his axe, and it would be cleared in an instant. After they passed through a bush, they stopped under a big tree at the bottom of a hill. "Boss Tai, how long until we enter the range of activity of the red flame beast?" The thin youth asked the strong man with the beard, and then he took off the water bag on his waist and gulped down a few mouthfuls of water. In this hot and stuffy Lost Forest, water was an essential thing. When the others heard this, they all looked at the strong man with the beard. The strong man with the beard threw the black iron axe on his shoulder to the ground and sat down. The strong man with the beard looked at the thin youth and said unhurriedly, "What's the hurry? If it goes smoothly, we can go back tomorrow." "Humph. The red flame beast is not so easy to kill." The handsome youth with the sword in his arms said with some disdain, and there was some arrogance in his expression. The character of people who cultivated the sword seemed to be a little arrogant and unsociable, giving people a cold and unapproachable feeling. The strong man with the beard smiled noncommittally and didn't say anything else. The atmosphere between these people was a little stiff. As for the small old man and the long-haired girl, they just looked at all of this with cold eyes, as if it had nothing to do with them. It wasn't hard to see that these people seemed to be united, but they were divided at heart. They were not united, and this was not a good sign. The strong man with the beard and the others began to take out their dry rations, and with the clear water in the water bag, they began to eat and drink. Walking in the forest, maintaining one's physical strength was the most important, even for cultivators who were much stronger than ordinary people. At this time, no one noticed that in the dense foliage above their heads, there was a black shadow silently moving downwards. Chi! Without any warning, the sound of something breaking through the air sounded above their heads. Then the people who were eating under the tree didn't even have time to react, and a white thing instantly wrapped around the waist of the strong man with the beard, Boss Tai. In the next moment, Boss Tai's huge body was actually pulled upwards, and the area around his waist that was wrapped by the white thread was sizzling with white smoke. This sudden change caused everyone to be shocked. The other 4 people quickly scattered with a schwa sound. The long-haired girl raised her hand. So. With 2 sounds, 2 black lights shot out. One of the black lights instantly cut through the white thread that wrapped around Boss Tai, and the other shot into the dense foliage of the tree. Chapter 282. The skinny young man walked forward with a folding fan in his hand. With a wave of his folding fan, he fanned the strange mist in front of him. A strong gust of wind appeared out of nowhere, sweeping towards the forest ahead. The strange mist shrouding the forest ahead was immediately dispersed by the strong gust of wind. The scene that appeared in front of everyone left them dumbfounded. In the forest ahead, a fiery red exotic beast was lying in the forest. Ice shards hung on its flame-like fur, and behind the exotic beast was a huge block of ice. The most unbelievable thing was that through the thick block of ice, they could clearly see a person sitting cross-legged in it. Chapter 283. The red flame beast's corpse was actually lying in the middle of the forest. This already made Boss Tai and the others inexplicably shocked. But when they saw the frozen figure not far from the red flame beast, all of them could not think as if they had turned into a statue, standing there, motionless. The reason why Boss Tai and the others entered the lost wild forest was to hunt the red flame beast, and someone had given them a generous reward to release this task. If they could successfully complete this task, then each of them would be able to get the reward they wanted. And in the next few years, they could find a place to cultivate and no longer have to worry about their cultivation expenses. In the Northern Devil region, the cultivation resources were in the hands of the Devil Path's major forces, and those Devil Path cultivators who were at the bottom of the hierarchy had to run around for cultivation resources. Therefore, those Devil Path cultivators with low cultivation bases in the Northern Devil region, there were only 2 ways out. One was to rely on the major forces, and the other was to have a large number of cultivation resources. Magical weapons, medicinal pills, and even cultivation methods, as long as they could afford it, or use satisfactory things to exchange, they could obtain them. Boss Tai and the others did not think that this would be the result. The incomparably fierce red flame beast that could spit out flames was already killed before they arrived. Even if they used their toes to think, they knew that this red flame beast must have been killed by the person in the ice. Moreover, it seemed to be a fatal blow. Although Boss Tai was tall and sturdy, like a big guy with well-developed limbs and a simple mind, but this was only his appearance. In fact, he was not only a master, but also a good hunter. There were no obvious traces of fighting in the forest, and there were not many bloodstains on the ground. Judging from these signs, they came to a conclusion that made Boss Tai's heart palpitate with fear. That is, in front of this person, this terrible red flame beast did not even have the strength to fight back, and was killed on the spot by this person. After a while, the little old man was the first to sober up from the horror, and all around, the scattered grayish-black fog showed signs of gathering again. That monster seemed to contain a gloomy cold chi, and in the front of the forest, one could see water droplets condensed into ice, and the white frost on the dead leaves. It was like a world of ice and snow. One had to know that the atmosphere in the lost, desolate forest was different from other places in the extreme Northern Devil region. The climate was hot and rainy, but there was absolutely no ice and snow. It was obvious that the person in the ice block was cultivating a strange technique, a demonic technique of extreme een and extreme cold. The cold aura that emanated from his body not only sealed him in ice, but also caused the temperature of the forest around him to plummet, resulting in the current situation. What do we do now? The little old man deliberately lowered his voice as he asked Big Brother Tai beside him, as if he was afraid that the person in the ice would hear his words. The corpse of the red flame beast was right in front of him. No one was willing to do so. However, no one knew what the consequences would be if the person in the ice block was alarmed. Originally, it was already a huge taboo in the cultivation world for them to barge into someone else's cultivation ground. They should have retreated. But if they were to take away the prey that had been killed by someone else, they would have completely offended that person. The person who was able to kill the red flame beast, if he were to make a move on them, their ending would definitely not be any better than the red flame beast. Big Brother Tai did not say anything, and the others also did not say anything. Retreat or... There were only two choices in front of everyone. If they chose the former, it would be relatively safer. If they chose the latter, no one would know what would happen. Hurry up and decide. The little old man was anxious as he urged. The longer they delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for them, because no one knew when the person in the ice block would wake up. Cold sweat seeped out of Big Brother Tai's forehead and then rolled down his face. The red flame beast was right in front of them, but in the end, Big Brother Tai clenched his teeth. If he had to die, then so be it. He signaled the skinny young man to wave his fan to disperse the strange grayish-brown fog in front of them. At this time, everyone already knew Big Brother Tai's decision. The skinny young man immediately took action. He gently waved the folding fan in his hand, and the grayish-brown mist that gradually gathered in front of him was immediately dispersed by a cool breeze. It was as if there was an invisible big hand gently pushing away the strange mist. The skinny young man's move was very gentle, unlike before when he released a strong wind with a wave of his hand. Now he was afraid of disturbing the person in the ice block in front of him. Big Brother Tai, the long-haired woman, the little old man, and the young man holding the sword, immediately walked forward and grabbed the red flame beast's forelimbs. Together, they lifted up the 5 to 6 meter long strange beast. Their movements were very light, almost not making any sound. However, just as they lifted the red flame beast and were about to leave, "Pa-la!" a light sound came from behind them. This was only a light sound, not much louder than the sound they made when they stepped on a thick layer of dead leaves. However, it was this light sound that made everyone's movement stop. The bodies of Big Brother Tai and the others seemed to suddenly stiffen. Their lifted feet hung in the air, not daring to move, not even daring to breathe. "Pa-la!" Another strange sound came from behind them. Listening to it in the ears of the 5 people, it was even more frightening than the screams of evil spirits. Even more frightening. The pores on the bodies of Big Brother Tai and the others all exploded. Their whole body was cold from head to toe, as if they had suddenly fallen into an extremely cold ice cave. They were nervous to the extreme, cold sweat dripping down and their hearts thumping. Did the person behind them wake up? No one dared to turn around to look, and no one dared to move. They just carried the red flame beast, standing in the middle of the forest, like a fossil. The sound of the ice block cracking sounded one after another. Every time it sounded, the hearts of Big Brother Tai and the others fiercely jumped. Finally, a strange sound came from behind them, and then a gust of extremely gloomy cold wind blew from behind them. The expressions of Boss Tai and the others immediately changed greatly. The extremely cold wind that blew from behind them almost froze them, causing them to be extremely frightened. They only heard a "ee" sound behind them. Then they saw a figure flash in front of them, and a young man dressed in white stood in front of them. This appearance, if it wasn't the person in the ice block, who else could it be? "Who are you people? Why did you appear here?" The white-clothed young man said indifferently. His cold eyes, like cold electricity, quickly swept over Big Brother Tai and the others. The white-clothed young man who broke out of the ice was Gu Fei. "We are bounty hunters. Next month is the 500th birthday of the Red Moon City, Lord's father. Someone hired us to kill a red flame beast for the birthday celebration. Big Brother Tai was very straightforward, directly revealing his identity and the purpose of entering the Lost Forest. Red Moon City, Red Flame Beast. Gu Fei frowned as he looked at the ferocious beast he had killed being carried by these people. 500th birthday. The father of the Scarlet Moon City's city, Lord Shur, has lived a long life. Gu Fei muttered to himself. These 5 people's cultivation was only at the self-awakening realm. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation was the bearded man who answered. With the strength of these 5 people, to kill this red flame beast seemed to be a bit difficult. With a glance, Gu Fei already saw through the cultivation and strength of Big Brother Tai and the others. The red flame beast was a strange beast that was between a fierce beast and a fierce beast. For a self-awakening realm cultivator, if they wanted to kill it, there would be a certain amount of risk. And, all of a sudden, Gu Fei's gaze landed on that short old man. This man seems like... Gu Fei's eyes suddenly lit up as he looked at the short old man, like a cold star, bursting out rays of light. Just as Gu Fei's eyes lit up, the short old man moved. He really was as quiet as a virgin and as agile as a rabbit. The short old man left an afterimage on the spot and quickly floated backwards like a cloud of smoke. What a fast speed! However, in Gu Fei's eyes, this speed was nothing. With a wave of his hand, a palm of light shot out and instantly arrived before him. Bam! The short old man, who was about to charge into the dense forest, exploded into a mist of blood. The short old man didn't even have the chance to scream before he died under Gu Fei's palm. Then Gu Fei made a grabbing motion with his right hand, and a bead that emitted a grayish light flew toward him and landed in his hand. This bead emitted a weak soul fluctuation. Without a doubt, this bead must be the devil core that was condensed from the short old man's body. A devil master at the first sky of the ascended realm? Humph! Even I almost misjudged him. Gu Fei laughed coldly. At the same time, his right hand that was holding the devil core issued a pong sound and emitted a bright golden light. Gu Fei used the power of metal to erase the remnant soul that was attached to the devil core. The short old man's soul was instantly destroyed, and he completely disappeared from this world. Gu Fei's ruthless methods caused Boss Tai and the others to be inconsolable. They had never imagined that the little old man was actually a devil master expert who had concealed his strength. All right, I'm too lazy to talk nonsense. I want to know where this place is. Gu Fei said coldly as he played with the light gray devil core that no longer emitted any soul fluctuation. My lord, this is the lost, desolate forest. It is the only forest in the demon area. This time, the skinny youth rushed to answer before Boss Tai. Boss Tai and the others couldn't help but feel a little strange. This devil master killed the short old man with just a wave of his hand. How could such a person not know about the lost, desolate forest? Very good. Which one of you has a map? It would be best if it is a map of the extreme northern demon region. If you do, I will use this thing in my hand to exchange for it. Gu Fei looked at the 4 of them with a playful expression as he spoke with a faint smile. My lord, you're really going to use that thing to exchange for it? Boss Tai's eyes widened to the size of a bell. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a trembling voice. The others' expressions weren't much better than Boss Tai's. Could it be that you have a map? Gu Fei was a little surprised. He was just casually saying it. If they wanted to leave the northern demon area and return to the central plains, the easiest way was to find a map of the northern demon area. Yes. Boss Tai quickly took out a piece of jade and nervously handed it over to Gu Fei. The others looked at Boss Tai with incomparable jealousy. A map for a devil core. This was something that they couldn't even dream of, but it happened. Chapter 284. Gu Fei took the jade slip and sent his divine sense into it. Very quickly, he retracted his divine sense. The thing inside the jade slip was exactly what he needed. "This thing is yours," said Yan Ling Gufei, put away the jade slip and casually threw the bead that was emitting a misty gray light to Boss Tai. Boss Tai was immediately overjoyed. At this time, he was still holding onto one of the red flame beast's thighs. He immediately let go and caught the bead with trembling hands. The other two people threw the red flame beast's corpse to the side when Boss Tai let go. Gu Fei got what he wanted. He no longer paid attention to these people and directly walked out. Very quickly, his figure disappeared into the bushes. He left just like that? No one could believe their eyes. After a long while, Boss Tai came back to his senses. He carefully brought the gray bead in his hand to his eyes and looked at it again and again. "We're rich this time." Boss Tai's face revealed a stupid expression. He stared with a pair of eyes that were the size of bells. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to see every line on the devil core. His saliva was about to drip onto the ground. The devil core faintly emitted a powerful energy fluctuation. There was no doubt about it. Most importantly, the strand of primordial spirit of the little old man that was attached to the devil core had already been erased by the youth. This devil core was equivalent to an ownerless treasure. As long as the power contained within could be drawn out, the benefits would be unimaginable. Boss Tai's cultivation had already reached the bottleneck of the ninth heaven. If he could successfully devour the power within the devil core, breaking through his current cultivation bottleneck would not be a difficult task. However, he seemed to have forgotten that his three companions were also extremely envious of the thing in his hand. The long-haired woman, the skinny young man with a folding fan, and the green-clothed swordsman with a treasured sword. When everyone looked at the gray bead in Boss Tai's hand, their eyes revealed a fanatical light. Devil core. Moreover, it was an ownerless devil core. Everyone wanted it because this was a treasure trove of power. As long as they could open this treasure trove, they would be able to easily obtain great power. The skinny youth couldn't hold it in any longer. He was the first to wave the folding fan in his hand towards Old Tai. The moment he moved, the long-haired woman and the green-robed swordsman also moved toward Old Tai. What do you want?" Boss Tai felt that the atmosphere was not right and immediately put away the devil core in his hand. Holding on to the black iron axe, he stared at the three people who were rushing over and said in a deep voice, "After a transcending mortality, Realm Demon Master was killed. The demon core left behind was incomparably precious to a demon, Tao, cultivator of the self-awakening realm. Swallowing this demon core, they might be able to reach the heavens in a single step and become a demon master expert. An ownerless demon core that had its divine sense erased. To a demonic Tao cultivator in the self-awakening state, it was an incomparably strong temptation. No one could resist such a temptation. These people had long forgotten about the mission, the red flame beast, and the rewards. At this time, they only had eyes for the devil core. In the face of huge benefits, the dark side of human nature would be stimulated and lured out. Then, under the drive, it would expand infinitely. "Boss Tai, do you really not know what we want to do?" The corners of the skinny young man's mouth slightly rose, revealing an evil smile. The mysterious runes on the folding fan in his hand began to light up. Wong, wong, wong. The sword in the green-robed swordsman's hand also began to tremble in the scabbard, releasing waves of crisp sword cries, as if it could shoot out from the scabbard at any time and turn into a sharp sword light. The long-haired woman stared at Boss Tai, her hands already hooked onto two crescent blades that were suffused with a faint blue brilliance. Boss Tai felt danger. He knew that these guys had already made up their minds to kill him. It was all because of the devil core. Could it be that all of this was already within the youth's expectations? A devil core was exchanged for a map, but it also left behind a seed of disaster. Whoever had the devil core would become the common enemy of the other three. They wished that they could cut Boss Tai into 8 pieces and then snatch the devil core into their hands. Killing each other in order to obtain cultivation resources, They did not hesitate to leave the northern demon region with their companions. This kind of thing could not be more common. In this world where only the strong were respected, obtaining great strength was the most important thing. Only with great strength would one not become someone else's cannon fodder. Only then would one not become a strand of soul under the hands of the strong. Without any suspense, a great battle suddenly erupted. However, Boss Tai was fighting 1 against 3 and was at an absolute disadvantage. He wasn't a match for those 3 at all. Very quickly, he was injured and fled, while the other 3 chased after him. There was nothing much to say. Whoever had the hardest fist was the boss. The people of the demon path believed that the strong were respected. If they couldn't win, then running away was not a shameful act. No one looked at the flaming red corpse of the strange beast that was tossed to the side. They had completely forgotten the reason why they entered the lost forest. Outside the forest, Gu Fei heard the sounds of fighting and shouting coming from behind him. He smiled and was about to leave when suddenly, as if he had sensed something, he turned around and looked towards the horizon. He could vaguely see a black dot on the horizon. This black dot was moving towards him. Gu Fei's complexion immediately changed. He turned around and dove into the forest. A loud and clear eagle cry came from the horizon. The black dot rapidly grew larger, revealing itself to be a giant black eagle. Its black feathers were faintly suffused with a layer of black light as it rapidly approached the forest. When that giant black eagle flew over the forest, Gu Fei was already 20 to 30 miles away. He wasn't aimlessly moving forward. He was heading towards Hongyu City. Boss Tai's jade slip map clearly indicated the topography of the northern demon region, the danger zones that couldn't be set foot in, the towns and cities where humans lived. Of course, there was also something that Gu Fei desperately wanted to know: the path to leave the northern demon region. Hongyu City was one of the 9 ancient giant cities in the northern demon region. No one knew who built these 9 giant cities in the demon region, nor did anyone know the origins of these 9 giant cities. They were ancient and had experienced the vicissitudes of time. They still stood tall after countless years. It was as if they had already stood on the earth since the beginning of the world. In the northern demon region, more than 90% of the humans lived in these 9 ancient cities. Of course, the residents of the cities were mostly ordinary people. Gu Fei wasn't going to congratulate the father of Hongyu City's city, Lord, for his 500th birthday. The reason why he decided to go to Hongyu City was because it was a path that Gu Fei had to pass through. After expelling the great Yin devil qi that had invaded his body, Gu Fei's Yuan qi had recovered. However, he knew that he had not completely shaken off the tail behind him. No one could compare to Gu Fei, who had grown up in the mountains, in terms of experience in the forest. He could do it without leaving any traces behind. However, it had to be said that the barbarian dogs raised by the demonic sects weren't just for decoration. These barbarian dogs were definitely natural beasts that tracked people. No matter how careful Gu Fei was, the barbarian dogs were still able to detect his tracks. The people from the 6 demonic paths palace chased after him from afar. Gu Fei tried all sorts of methods, but it seemed like he couldn't shake off the pursuers. However, Gu Fei's methods weren't completely useless. At the very least, they slowed down the pursuers' speed. After walking through the forest for about 300 li, Gu Fei finally exited the lost, desolate forest. Once he exited the lost, desolate forest, the vegetation around him became sparse. After leaving the lost, desolate forest and walking for about 10 kilometers, Gu Fei realized that the vegetation around him was decreasing. Tall trees were already very rare. All he could see were some short shrubs. Everywhere he looked, he could see withered weeds and the hard, dark brown soil under his feet. The soil seemed to have been soaked in countless amounts of blood, like dried bloodstains. After walking for about 30 to 40 kilometers, he couldn't see a single decent tree. Even the short shrubs had begun to sparse. Not only that, Gu Fei also realized that the temperature around him was getting colder and colder after he walked out of the lost, desolate forest. At this time, he could already feel the cold wind blowing. After leaving the lost, desolate forest, there was actually a barren land in front of him. This made Gu Fei feel a little uneasy. If he walked in such an open area, it would be very easy for the pursuers behind him to catch up to him. Gu Fei didn't hesitate any longer. He took large strides and rushed forward. A 5-colored radiance came out of his body and blocked the cold air. It was as if he had turned into a 5-colored rainbow that cut through the dark brown ground. 8 steps of extreme speed allowed Gu Fei to run as if he was flying, and in an instant he was already far away. After half an hour of running on the dark brown ground, Gu Fei estimated that he had already run 300 to 400 kilometers. Then, Gu Fei soon discovered a town standing on the horizon in front of him. He knew that this was not the Crimson Moon City marked on the map, but a small town, a transit station for entering and exiting the lost, desolate forest. Those who went to the lost, desolate forest, or those who came out of the lost, desolate forest, would rest in this small town for a while before continuing on their journey. Soon, Gu Fei arrived outside the town. This was a small town built with black stones and dark brown mud bricks. When Gu Fei appeared outside the town, the 2 barbarian dogs lying on the archway outside the town's entrance raised their ferocious heads and glared fiercely at Gu Fei. At this time, a sharp whistle suddenly sounded in the town. The 2 barbarian dogs immediately stood up from the archway and ran into the town. "There's a town!" Gu Fei looked at the 3 words on the archway and couldn't help but smile. The name of this town was really special. It seemed that within a radius of several hundred kilometers, there really was only one town. Chapter 285. The sun was setting in the west. Of course, in the northern Devil Domain, one could not see the sunset. The sun only showed a rough outline on the western horizon. Gu Fei walked into this. There is a town. He saw that the houses on both sides of the road were very simple. However, there were all kinds of shops. Gu Fei even saw a weapon shop. The weapons of cultivators were, of course, different. They were weapons that contained magical power fluctuations. They were suitable for those low-level devil cultivators in the self-awakening realm. High-level cultivators had their own magic weapons, but they did not look at these weapons that were only slightly more powerful than ordinary weapons. There were not many people walking on the street. Those people saw a stranger appear in the town, but they did not seem to find it strange, nor did they have any surprised expressions. On the western horizon, a burning cloud reflected the world red, like a red-hot iron. The town seemed to be covered with a thin layer of red gauze. Gu Fei came to the only inn in the town. Here, there were more people. Gu Fei noticed that the people coming in and out of the inn were all wearing leather armor and carrying weapons. They were fully armed. These low-level devil Dao cultivators all wanted to go to the lost, desolate forest to try their luck. If their luck was good, they might be able to hunt a rare strange beast or pick a heaven-earth spirit herb, which would be enough to cover their expenses for several years. Gu Fei did not enter the inn. He knew that soon those trackers behind him would follow his tracks and come to this town. He did not want to stay in this town. Gu Fei directly passed through the town. However, just as Gu Fei was about to walk out of the town, 2 figures suddenly appeared on the street in front of him and rushed towards him. Gu Fei was suddenly startled. He could not help but feel a little surprised. In an instant, he felt a strong hostility from the 2 people who suddenly appeared in front of him. 2 devil masters. When Gu Fei felt the strong aura from the other party, Gu Fei's pupils immediately shrank. He stopped in his tracks. The people chasing after him would definitely not be able to catch up to him in time, because they would not be able to tell which direction he was heading in. In that case, there was only one explanation, and that was that those people had already sent out a message and used the manpower within a 1,000-mile radius to cast an invisible net to deal with him. Gu Fei was like a fish that had escaped the net, and now he had crashed into the enemy's big net. The two devil masters who were approaching Gu Fei stopped 3 zhang away from Gu Fei and stared coldly at Gu Fei. The streets of the small town were quite wide. Gu Fei and the 2 demon masters in front of him stood opposite each other. Both of them had serious expressions on their faces, neither daring to underestimate the other. "You are Gu Fei," one of the yellow-haired, middle-aged men said coldly, and he didn't conceal the dense, killing intent in his tone. "Humph! You are that Chu Ji's lackeys?" Gu Fei asked with a cold smile. They had skills, but they were willing to be someone else's lackeys. Gu Fei was very disdainful of these 2 fellows who blocked his way. When the 2 demon masters heard this, they immediately flew into a rage and shouted together, "How dare you? Is the name of our young master something that people like you can call out?" "I called him out, so what?" Gu Fei directly looked down on the 2 fellows in front of him. "Then you can go to hell." The furious, yellow-haired, middle-aged man shouted and directly attacked Gu Fei. As he waved his hands, a deathly gray demonic light immediately appeared from his hands and slashed at Gu Fei. A terrifying and gloomy aura of death immediately filled the air. This was the death light blade that emitted a dense aura of death. Without saying anything else, the other devil master also made his move. A vast amount of magic power surged out of his body. A stone shrouded in black qi flew out of his body and smashed towards Gu Fei. When the black stone flew out, it was only the size of a fist, but when it smashed towards Gu Fei, it instantly became the size of a house and smashed towards Gu Fei's head. As the black qi curled around the huge demon stone, there seemed to be countless fierce demons roaring and struggling, causing Gu Fei to feel endless pressure. Golden Fist! Gu Fei took a step forward and shouted as he blasted his fist forward. A dazzling golden light surged forward like a golden wave. In an instant, it collided with the countless, deathly gray light blades of the yellow-haired demon master. There was a burst of sound of wind and thunder, and the death light blades all collapsed in the golden light. At the same time, Gu Fei's left hand formed a seal and smashed towards the demon stone that was emitting a strong spiritual power fluctuation. Bang! The demon stone directly flew away. Gu Fei's strength was unparalleled. After resolving the attacks of the 2 demon masters, he directly strode forward, causing the 2 demon masters to be inexplicably shocked. They never thought that Gu Fei's strength would be so strong. Buzz! A sword cry sounded, and a 5-colored sword light condensed in Gu Fei's hand. That wasn't a sword soul. It was a sword qi condensed by Gu Fei's 5 elemental yuan qi. Although this 5-colored sword light wasn't a true divine weapon, it was condensed into a solid form and emitted waves of powerful sword qi. It wasn't inferior to a true divine weapon by much. Kill! Gu Fei took a big step forward, and the 5-colored sword light in his hand slashed towards the 2 demon masters. For a moment, the street was filled with sword qi. Gu Fei fought against 2 transcending mortality, realm devil cultivators by himself. He was fearless, and his battle intent was like a rainbow. This was a violent collision between a martial skill and a divine art. The sword light in Gu Fei's hand shattered the deathly light blades of the death light blades. He then used the 5 elemental annihilation seal to bombard the demon stone that was shrouded in devil qi. The fierce battle that erupted on the street immediately alerted everyone in the small town. Everyone was attracted by the battle and watched from afar. Gu Fei had successfully resisted the joint attack of the 2 demon masters. He knew that he wouldn't lose, so he slowly relaxed his mind. Unknowingly, he was gradually immersed in a mysterious realm of martial Dao. It was rare for him to meet an evenly matched opponent. At this moment, Gu Fei didn't have any distracting thoughts in his mind, only the pursuit of martial Dao. The 5-colored sword light in his hand not only emitted unparalleled sword qi, but also the martial intent in his heart. The dazzling sword light gradually changed from 5 colors to gold, green, water blue, fiery red, and earth gray. The power of the 5 elemental yuan qi was constantly changing. The multifarious and ever-changing sword light was like a rainbow, crisscrossing in all directions. The unparalleled sword qi produced a piercing sound. Perhaps even Gu Fei himself would never have thought that, at this moment, he had entered a state of selflessness. In his mind, there was only pure comprehension of the profound meaning of martial Tao. Many seemingly right but wrong martial Tao problems that he had encountered due to the improvement of his cultivation were gradually becoming clearer as the 5 elemental yuan qi in Gu Fei's body circulated and the 5 elemental sword in his hand was brandishing. Gu Fei's body emitted a faintly discernible 5-colored qi. The sword light that condensed in his hand was getting stronger and stronger. He was surrounded by a colorful light. Vaguely, it seemed that other than the sword light in Gu Fei's hand, there were also 4 hazy sword shadows around him. An even more profound martial Tao battle skill, an ancient cultivation method, was gradually being comprehended by him and then mastered. The profound meaning of the martial Tao battle skill flowed from his hand. The 2 demon masters surrounding him turned pale. They were both transcending mortality, realm cultivators. How could they not understand Gu Fei's current state? The 2 demon masters knew that Gu Fei was already immersed in a mysterious martial realm. It was extremely likely that he would make a breakthrough during the battle. This was not a good sign. They did not dare to hold back anymore. They attacked with all their strength. The demon stone emitted an endless amount of demon qi, covering the heaven and earth. Within the demon qi, the demon stone emitted a demonic light. It became the size of a small mountain and continuously bombarded Gu Fei. A part of the void was shaken by the terrifying power emitted by the demon stone. Rumble. The houses on both sides of the street were affected. They collapsed one after another. Smoke and dust filled the air. The other demon master shot out terrifying death light blades. They tore through the void and unceasingly slashed towards Gu Fei. The 2 great demon masters attacked with their full strength, erupting with terrifying energy fluctuations that caused the entire town to shake. The spectators in the distance were terrified. They were constantly forced to retreat even further away by the shock waves that came from the battle. However, the stronger their attacks were, the fiercer Gu Fei's counterattack became. It was still a stalemate. The 2 demon masters were unable to gain the upper hand. This continued for nearly half an hour. The more the 2 demon masters fought, the more afraid they became. They looked at each other and understood each other's intentions. They knew that they could not let Gu Fei continue. They must destroy his mysterious state. The yellow-haired devil master's long, dark yellow hair danced wildly in the wind. He crazily urged the magic power in his body, and the energy of the spell surged out from his body. Then, with a flash of light, a dark gray death light blade appeared and slashed at Gu Fei from all directions. Every blade of death was 50 to 60 feet long and exuded a heart-palpitating aura of death. There were at least 1,000 of them, and such a terrifying spell technique sent bursts of terrifying energy, fluctuations through the air. It was as if this part of the world had been sliced into thousands of pieces. As for the other demon master, he soared into the sky and leaped onto the mountain-sized demon stone that was emitting a terrifying demonic aura that blotted out the sky. He rode the demon stone and smashed it towards Gu Fei. The terrifying demon stone descended from the sky like a primordial demon mountain. Rumble. The entire heaven and earth trembled, emitting a muffled, thunderous sound. The void seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Its power was astonishing. The terrifying attack from all directions, and the sky was like a raging sea. It crazily rushed towards Gu Fei. It was like a terrible, destructive storm. It wanted to completely obliterate Gu Fei. Chapter 286. Facing such an attack, Gu Fei did not seem to care at all. He still did not show any signs of leaving the martial realm, and was still immersed in that miraculous realm of martial arts. However, the pressure from the outside world caused some changes in Gu Fei's body. The 5 elements Yuan Qi in his body began to circulate faster, like a surging Yangtze River, like a torrential river. The warrior's Yuan Qi seeped out of his body, and the 5-colored aura on his body became stronger and stronger. The 4 illusory sword shadows in the aura around his body began to become clear. Then, the sword light in his hand also flew out and circled around his body. Gold, green, water blue, fiery red, earth gray, 5 sword shadows, 5 colors, 5 types of energy fluctuations, representing the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Gold, wood, water, fire, earth, 5 types of sword qi. As the death light blades that blotted out the sky and covered the earth rushed over from all directions, Gu Fei's hands drew out a series of profound marks. The 5 sword shadows released an unparalleled sword qi, continuously slashing out. The blazing sword light was like a rainbow that shot out in all directions. Not only did it cause the thousands of death light blades that were slashing towards him to become unrecognizable, they all dissipated in the air and even went against the sky. The sword light sliced through the air and sent the demon stone that was like an ancient demon mountain smashing down, along with the demon master that was standing on top of the demon stone, flying high into the sky. Gu Fei's black hair danced in the wind. He roared towards the sky, his long sword pointing towards the sky. The 5 faint and illusory sword shadows around him exploded with sword qi that soared into the sky, with the power to pierce through the sky. Blood splattered everywhere. The demon master that was sent flying high into the sky was instantly chased by the 5 sword shadows, pierced through his body, and fell to the ground. A ball of fist-sized blood-red light rushed out from the demon master's corpse and rose into the sky. Within the red light, one could vaguely see a blood-red demon core wrapped around it. The primordial spirit of a transcending mortality realm expert had already solidified and was not easy to disperse. Only destroying his body could not be considered as truly killing the demon master. Gu Fei extended his hand, and a palm of light rushed out, grabbing the devil core that was trying to escape into the sky, and imprisoned it. The yellow-haired devil master turned pale with fright. From the beginning until now, not even an hour had passed. Not only was Gu Fei becoming more and more courageous, but he had also defeated his comrade in an instant. He could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Gu Fei used his qi to disperse the primordial spirit that was attached to the devil core, immediately causing the devil master's soul to scatter. Then he put the devil core that was flickering with a demonic bloodlight like an agate into his storage bag. At this moment, the demon stone that had been sent flying shrank to the size of a fist, perhaps due to the death of its owner. The demon qi that blotted out the sky also disappeared into the demon stone. A magic treasure of the demonic path? Gu Fei extended his hand again, and the fist-sized demon stone was also captured, and he put it into his storage bag. He had experienced the power of this demon stone before, and it was a pretty good demon Dao treasure. The spectators who saw this scene from afar could not help but feel envious. That was a transcending mortality, realm devil Dao cultivator, and he was killed just like that. This person was really audacious. He actually dared to kill someone in public, steal their demon core, and steal their treasure. He was really crazy. What Gu Fei didn't know was that his actions had already caused the people in the town to associate him with the fiendish great devil of the devil Dao who'd witnessed the scene. 5 hazy sword shadows flew around Gu Fei's body, emitting waves of powerful 5 elemental sword qi. He took big steps forward, and with every step he took, the earth trembled. His unparalleled aura caused the expression of the yellow-haired devil master to change again and again. Without any words, Gu Fei stretched out his hand, and a golden sword shadow appeared beside him. Then he waved his sword, and the sword broke through the void. The golden sword shadow turned into a bright sword light that was 2 feet long, and it slashed towards the yellow-haired devil master. The unparalleled sword chi seemed to have triggered the power of the metal element in the void, and it emitted a great pressure, causing the Devil Master to feel a great pressure. The yellow-haired Devil Master braced himself and shot out a deathly light blade of death to meet the sword light. The deathly gray light blade of death collided with the dazzling sword light. The first light blade of death collided with the sword light, but it was dispersed in an instant. The golden sword light also dimmed a lot, but it still rushed forward. The Devil Master was shocked, and he shot out a second light blade of death, a third and a fourth light blade of death. Only then did the dazzling golden light explode and collapse in the void. However, at this time, Gu Fei once again took the water blue sword shadow that was flying around him into his hand, and then he directly slashed at the Devil Master. In an instant, the vast and mighty aqua blue sword shadow tore through the void and silently slashed towards the Demon Master, forcing him to once again unleash the blade of death to resist the sharp sword light that was slashing towards him. At the same time, a hazy golden sword shadow appeared in the dazzling five-colored light around Gu Fei. This was the sword shadow formed by the metal sword chi, and it was the external form of the martial intent that Gu Fei was comprehending. It could be said that as long as the martial intent was not extinguished, the five sword shadows around him would not truly disappear. The five elemental sword chi was condensed from the five elemental yuan chi that surged in his body. The Devil Master was at an absolute disadvantage. After shattering the metal sword light, the water sword slashed in front of him. Endless, deathly aura condensed into a death blade of death, and it continuously attacked. The unparalleled sword light forced the Devil Master to retreat again and again, and it was obvious that he was going to lose. When the Devil Master defeated the water sword light that Gu Fei had shot out, he was already 10 feet away, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Gu Fei took a big step forward, and a fire-like sword shadow was drawn into his hand, and then he swung it out. At the same time, the water sword shadow appeared around him again. The fire sword light, as fast as lightning, turned into a fire dragon that emitted a terrifying heat, and fiercely pounced towards the Devil Master, who had just stabilized his body. At this time, the Devil Master already knew that he was no match for Gu Fei, and he raised his hand to shoot out a death blade of death, and his body quickly retreated. Want to escape? Gu Fei couldn't help but sneer. In the instant that the Devil Master flew back, Gu Fei used the 8 desolate steps and rushed forward like the wind and lightning. 8 extreme steps. Among the practitioners of the same level, Gu Fei's speed was comparable to that of many. He instantly closed in on the Devil Master. The wood sword shadow and the gray earth sword shadow were drawn into his hands in an instant, and he swung them forward at the same time. The sword chi surged, and the power of the 5 elements gathered together. The sword light seemed to have escaped into the void, and as if it could break through the void, it seemed to ignore the distance of space, and suddenly appeared in front of the retreating Devil Master. Without any suspense, the fire elemental sword ray had already caused the Demon Master to panic. Now the Gu Fei's wood elemental sword ray and earth elemental sword ray appeared. The Demon Master was unable to resist and was pierced by the sword ray. In the next moment, boom! With a loud sound, his whole body exploded, and his bones were smashed into pieces. His flesh and blood turned into a blood mist and floated in the void. 2 sword lights rushed out of the blood mist and flew back to Gu Fei. The 5 sword shadows all disappeared into Gu Fei's body. He had already woken up from that wonderful martial state and saw a gray death aura wrapped around a devil core, rushing to the sky and flying out of the town. Shwa! Gu Fei didn't think too much and used the 8 desolate steps, showing his extreme speed, and chased after the devil core that was emitting a cold death aura. The devil core that was controlled by the Devil Master's Yuan spirit rushed out of the town, and in the blink of an eye it rushed into the sky and disappeared into the dark sky. Yuan spirit transformation, thousands of miles away, so fast. Gu Fei chased out of the town and could only see a gray shadow flash in the sky, and he couldn't help but be shocked. The Yuan spirit was different from the body, and the Yuan spirit, formed by the ascended mortality realm Devil Master, was attached to the Devil Core, and it was like a second life. The primordial spirit of the yellow-haired Devil Master was far more powerful than the primordial spirit of the Devil Master that Gu Fei had killed with lightning speed. This yellow-haired Devil Master's cultivation should be at the peak of the fifth sky of the ascended mortality realm, and his powerful Yuan spirit allowed him to escape from Gu Fei. If it was a Devil Master at the fourth sky of the ascended mortality realm, he definitely wouldn't be able to escape from Gu Fei. There was a huge difference between the fifth sky of the ascended mortality realm and the fourth sky of the ascended mortality realm. A Devil Master at the fifth sky of the ascended mortality realm wasn't just a little bit stronger than a Devil Master at the fourth sky of the ascended mortality realm. However, it was a pity that their opponent was Gu Fei. As one's cultivation increased, the advantage of a cultivator started to show. Gu Fei was only at the peak of the third sky of the ascended mortality realm, but he was able to kill a Devil Master at the fourth sky of the ascended mortality realm and force a Devil Master at the fifth sky of the ascended mortality realm to escape with only the Devil Core. The higher the cultivation, the more obvious the difference between Gu Fei and other cultivators. Within the same level, there was probably no one that could be his opponent. His opponents were those at the fourth or fifth sky of the ascended mortality realm. As he continued to break through the shackles of cultivation, he came into contact with even more profound martial arts realms. Gu Fei grew more and more confident. The path of martial arts was definitely not inferior to any other cultivation system. Outside the town, there were 7 or 8 devil cultivators in black blocking the way in and out of the town. The moment they saw Gu Fei rush out of the town, they immediately scattered in all directions. Gu Fei swept his gaze across these people and realized that they were all low-level devil cultivators. He didn't attack them at all. However, he knew that the experts from the 6 Devil Paths Palace would arrive soon. News of what happened here had already spread, and the experts from the 6 Devil Paths Palace were probably already on their way here. Gu Fei didn't hesitate any longer. He directly strode towards the east. He wanted the people in the town to see him heading east. After running for 100 miles, the town was long out of his sight. Gu Fei then turned south, heading towards the Red Moon City. This was the simplest method he used to confuse his pursuers. Chapter 287. There was one town where the people were undoubtedly lucky. The madman who dared to kill people and take their devil cores and magic weapons in front of everyone didn't do anything crazy like slaughtering the whole town. Instead, he directly left. In the eyes of the townspeople, those vicious and evil devils would always leave no survivors wherever they went. It was not as if they had never massacred a village or even a town before. These great devils were unscrupulous and did things according to their own whims. It could be said that people were afraid when they saw them, ghosts were worried when they saw them, and demons were frightened when they saw them. However, when Gu Fei left, the people in the town just breathed a sigh of relief. From the direction of the Lost Forest, an extremely terrifying and powerful aura suddenly came. Everyone in the town was alarmed again. They felt that the powerful aura was quickly approaching the town. Outside the town, a black shadow flew over from the north. Soon, a tall figure with heavy devil chi surging around his body appeared in the sky above the town. The devil chi was vast and mighty, as if the night had suddenly fallen. The monstrous devil chi covered the sky above the town, and the sun couldn't be seen. Terrifying fluctuations came down from the devil cloud. Everyone in the town suddenly trembled with fear. What day was today? Usually, it was rare to see an expert. Why did he suddenly jump out one after another? The people in the town were alarmed. A depressing feeling of not being able to control their own fate welled up in their hearts. This was the cruel reality. Only the strong could control their own fate and not be manipulated by others. But the fate of the weak was controlled by the hands of the strong. The life and death of the weak was just in the thoughts of the strong. Very soon, the demonic path powerhouse in the sky above the small town noticed the corpse of the demon master who had been killed by Gu Fei on the streets of the small town. Roar! An angry roar resounded in the demonic clouds, and the sound waves surged in all directions. The small town below began to tremble. Those with weaker cultivations had long since turned pale and collapsed to the ground. The terrifying pressure that descended from the sky caused them to be unable to straighten their backs. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Even Wang Ji and the others can't stop him? Interesting. A gigantic demonic shadow appeared in the churning demonic clouds, and there was a hint of madness in the chilling voice that came from the demonic clouds. At this moment, a gray light flashed in the distant sky, quickly approaching the small town. The demonic shadow standing on the demonic cloud immediately sensed something strange the moment the gray light appeared. Two terrifying rays of light shot out from the demonic shadow's head and swept towards the gray light that was rapidly flying towards it. Not long after, the ball of gray light flew close. The ball of gray light was only the size of a fist, and it gave off a powerful aura of death. It was the light of death. In the gray light, there was a pearl that shone with the light of death. It was the essence soul fiend core of the yellow-haired fiend master who had escaped from Gu Fei's hands. Wang Ji, what's going on? Why have you become like this? The huge, illusory, demonic figure on the demonic clouds said in a sinister tone. His loud voice spread out and could be heard clearly for dozens of li. Wang Ji, isn't that an expert from the Six Paths Demon Palace? Someone in the town recognized the person the demonic shadow was talking about. The people from the Six Paths Demon Palace seemed to be chasing after that madman. I wonder where that person came from. He actually made the Six Paths Demon Palace send out a void-controlling realm demon general to kill him. The people in the town were used to seeing all kinds of people in the lost, desolate forest. They were also very knowledgeable. In an instant, someone could vaguely guess what had happened. Greetings, Third Young Master. In reply to Third Young Master, we seem to have underestimated the opponent's strength. A strong soul wave came from the gray light. The Devil Master from the Six Paths Demon Palace, called Wang Ji, was communicating with the void-controlling realm demon general in the Devil Cloud through soul waves. This was the most direct form of communication and was many times more convenient than speaking. Underestimated the opponent? A surprised voice came from the Devil Cloud. Yes, that person's strength is probably above the fifth heaven of Devil Master, the guy called Wang Ji said. Through the soul waves, one could clearly feel the fear that came from the soul. I thought it was going to be a boring hunt. Very well. I want to see what kind of person can make even the boss suffer such a big loss. The person in the Devil Cloud seemed to be very excited. He treated the matter of chasing after Gu Fei as a hunt. He treated it as a game. No one thought that a young transcending mortality realm cultivator would have a chance of survival under the pursuit of a void-controlling realm demon general. There was no comparison between a void-controlling realm expert and a transcending mortality realm cultivator. The difference in strength between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. Third Young Master, please take revenge for your subordinates. Devil Master Wang Ji said fiercely. Gu Fei had destroyed his physical body, causing him to suffer a great loss of vitality. He wanted to cut Gu Fei into 8 pieces to vent the hatred in his heart. Wang Ji, I will take revenge for you. The voice that came from the Devil Cloud suddenly turned cold. Thank you. Spare my life. From the deathly gray light, a horrified soul wave suddenly came out. Then the surging devil chi in the sky actually condensed into a big mouth, swallowing the deathly gray light. Since you have lost your physical body, what's the use of keeping you alive? Coincidentally, I have fought with that demon dragon for a day and a night, consuming a lot of vitality. It is your honor to refine you into a part of my power." Such words came out from the devil cloud. The people in the town couldn't help but be frightened. The guy outside was even more ruthless and terrifying than the madman who just left and stole the devil pill and magic treasures. The people in the town all felt the soul wave of Devil Master Wang Ji and knew what was happening outside. Everyone couldn't help but be alarmed, afraid that the person in the sky outside would attack them. It was no wonder that they were so frightened. A person who could even kill his subordinates. The lives of the people in the town were even less than ants to this terrifying devil. The devil expert in the sky above the town was extremely cruel and merciless. That Devil Master Wang Ji was also unlucky to have met this terrifying master and ended up in a pitiful state. The devil general in the void controlling realm had already condensed a devil infant. He had all kinds of divine abilities and powerful soul power. He directly searched Devil Master Wang Ji's primordial spirit and read his memories. Very quickly, the devil general in the devil cloud knew what happened in the town. Then, he rode the devil cloud and flew towards the east. In Devil Master Wang Ji's memory, Gu Fei was flying towards the east. The terrifying soul wave quickly went far away. The people in the town finally let out a sigh of relief. They gradually calmed down the fear in their hearts and then came out from their hiding place. On the empty street, people began to walk again. "Those damn guys are finally gone." This old man was almost scared to death. A white-haired old man with a goatee on his chin looked in the direction where the devil cloud disappeared and said with lingering fear, "Even the devil general has been mobilized. Is the devil domain going to be chaotic again?" Someone said worriedly, "If those big figures were to clash, in the end, we, the low-level cultivators, would be the unlucky ones." Someone sighed helplessly. Just when everyone thought that the crisis was over, the skinny old man with a goatee on his chin suddenly jumped up from the ground like a rabbit whose tail was stepped on. "Damn it, don't let me live." The little old man let out a strange cry and rushed into the house. With a bang, he slammed the door. This little old man's action was definitely several times faster than a rabbit's. After everyone saw the little old man's action, they were stunned for a moment. Then, someone quickly noticed something strange. Someone pointed in the direction of the lost, desolate forest and exclaimed in fright, What is that?" That person's voice trembled as he stuttered. "What?" The people on the street looked in the direction of the frightened man's finger. Then, everyone sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Then, whoosh! With a bang, the street was once again empty. These guys' movements could be described as fast as lightning. At this time, several powerful auras came from the direction of the lost forest. 7 or 8 shadows appeared in the distant sky and quickly moved towards a town. Needless to say, there were experts coming towards a town. The people in the town once again looked for a place to hide. Those guys they couldn't afford to provoke, but they could afford to hide. Those 7 or 8 shadows quickly approached the town. They were actually 7 or 8 giant black eagles. On the back of 5 of the giant eagles, there were 5 vague figures. There were experts coming on the eagles. It was no wonder that the people in the town immediately looked for a place to hide. It had to be said that the northern Devil region was really big. The barren land spanned thousands of miles and seemed to be vast and boundless. The demonic nature that affected people's state of mind seemed to be everywhere. If one stayed here for a long time, they would definitely be in danger of being possessed by the devil. However, this was a paradise for devil cultivators. In the Tonglong continent, there was no place like the northern Devil region, which was suitable for devil cultivators to cultivate. Gu Fei passed through the endless barren land, crossed a stretch of low thorns and shrubs, and finally came to the vicinity of the Hongyu city. It was very strange. In the area of 1,000 miles around the Hongyu city, lush vegetation began to appear. The demonic nature that disturbed people's state of mind also disappeared, and the temperature became mild. It seemed that there was a force that blocked the demonic nature and the cold in the Northern Devil region. Gu Fei saw a forest, and in the forest he saw many animals walking in the woodland. Standing on a hillside, the fragrance of grass and trees hid his face. The scene in front of him shocked Gu Fei. It was an oasis that suddenly appeared in the middle of the barren land. The area of 1,000 miles around the Hongyu city gave Gu Fei a strange feeling, as if it had become a world of its own. Gu Fei continued to move forward. After passing through the dense forest, a huge city appeared in front of him. Under the night sky, the huge black city in front of him was like a prehistoric beast entrenched between the heavens and the earth, giving people a feeling of extreme shock that came from the bottom of their hearts. Chapter 288. The majestic Crimson Moon City had clearly experienced countless years and was filled with the vicissitudes of time. The city walls were tall and thick, reaching 200 feet high. The city walls were wide enough for 5 or 6 carriages to run side by side. The moat was 250 to 600 feet wide and over 100 feet deep. There were aquatic plants and floating lotuses within, and from time to time there would be shoals of fish swimming about. But if one looked closely, they could see giant black shadows appearing and disappearing in the water. Without a doubt, Crimson Moon City was a grand and magnificent ancient city within the northern demon region. Even in the densely populated Central Plains, such a giant city was absolutely rare. This is Crimson Moon City. Looking at the giant city in front of him, Gu Fei hesitated for a moment and then walked forward. At this time it was already late at night. The dusky world gave off an oppressive feeling that made one's heart palpitate. It was as if in the darkness there were countless demons staring at them. Only the giant city in front of him shined with light. It was like a bright pearl in the darkness, so eye-catching and dazzling. Although it was right in front of him, Gu Fei was still at least 40 to 50 miles away from Crimson Moon City. He also needed to pass through a dense forest. In the dark of night, it was completely silent. Only the faint sounds of people could be heard coming from Crimson Moon City in front of him. No one was willing to walk out of Crimson Moon City in the dark of night, and no one was willing to walk in the dark of the northern demon region. This was because in the dark brown barren land, demonic beasts would occasionally take advantage of the darkness to move about, searching for food. The demonic beasts were not the most dangerous factor. The most dangerous factor was the people, especially the vicious and evil demonic cultivators. In the northern demon region, there was such a type of existence. They would come out in the dark of night and attack other demonic cultivators that were alone, hunting them and seizing their useful things. These people often appeared in the area outside of the giant city. They were dangerous hunters, but they weren't hunting vicious beasts, but other demonic cultivators, obtaining what they needed from their prey. When Gu Fei walked into the dense forest, a sudden gust of wind blew past him. A demonic black tiger pounced out from the forest without warning. This black tiger was 4 meters long, and its entire body was covered in pitch-black fur that seemed to shine with a glossy black light. Roar! The black tiger roared, and the forest shook. Chaotic sounds came from the forest. The tiger's roar startled the countless birds that were resting in the forest. Tigers were the kings of the forest. However, in the Tongue-Long continent, there were many ferocious beasts that were more powerful than tigers. Moreover, this black tiger had not reached the level of a ferocious beast. "You're courting death." Gu Fei stretched out his hand, and a golden sword shadow immediately appeared in his hand. At this moment, the unlucky black tiger suddenly squatted down. Then, with a hoosound, it leaped up from the ground and fiercely pounced towards Gu Fei. Gu Fei gently waved his hand, and a golden light shot out. Swish! The ferocious tiger that was pouncing over was split into 2 halves in the air. Blood splattered everywhere, and the mutilated corpse fell to the ground. After killing the ferocious tiger, Gu Fei was about to continue forward. However, at this moment he suddenly frowned and looked towards the depths of the forest. In the dusky forest, where one could not even see their own fingers, Gu Fei's eyes lit up like two cold stars. It was as if he could see through the void and see the things in the depths of the forest. Immediately after, a slight sound came from the forest in front of him, as if something was quickly approaching him. Very quickly, Gu Fei saw 3 black figures walk out of the forest like ghosts. When Gu Fei saw these 3 fellows who were completely wrapped in black robes, revealing only a pair of blue demonic eyes, his pupils involuntarily shrank. They walked through the forest as if they were flying, yet they only made slight, almost negligible sounds. These 3 people's cultivation levels were not low. Could they be the minions of the 6th demonic path palace? Thinking of this, Gu Fei's body suddenly emitted a chilling, killing intent, following which a faint layer of 5-colored light appeared on his body, and an obscure yet powerful energy wave spread out from his body. When the 3 black-robed men who walked out of the dense forest saw this scene, their blue eyes immediately revealed a trace of surprise. "Network, brother, do you know that the black tiger you killed was raised by us?" The black-robed man, who seemed to be the leader, said in a low voice. His blue eyes that were exposed outside the black robe stared at Gu Fei's face. "So what if it was raised by you?" Gu Fei said indifferently, his face expressionless. "First sky of the transcending mortality realm. 3rd sky of the transcending mortality realm." Gu Fei was slightly shocked. Among the 3 fellows in front of him, the lowest cultivation level was at the 1st sky of the transcending mortality realm, and one of them had actually reached the 3rd sky of the transcending mortality realm. This was a demonic master level cultivator. A demonic master level cultivator at the transcending mortality realm could already be considered an expert in the extreme North Demon region. Red Moon City was so close. Could these people be from the city? From the words of the leader, Gu Fei already knew that these 3 black-robed demonic masters were clearly not on the same side as the people who were chasing him. If these people were the claws of the 6 Paths Demon Palace, they would have attacked him the moment they saw him. They definitely wouldn't have said anything to him, because they were already enemies that would not rest until one of them was dead. Nothing much. Put down the magic treasure pouch on your waist and scram. Another black-robed demonic master said. He seemed to be very unhappy. Gu Fei laughed coldly, although he couldn't see the expressions of these 3 fellows under the black robes from their tone. These 3 fellows were practically robbers. This was the first time he had met a demonic master-level robber. "What are you laughing at? We don't need you to pay with your life. You're already very lucky." The 3rd black-robed demonic master seemed to be a little impatient at this point. His eyes flashed fiercely as he spoke coldly. Gu Fei wasn't a fool. These people were obviously afraid of him because they saw that he wasn't any weaker than them. That was why they were acting this way. If his cultivation was weaker than theirs, these 3 fellows would have already attacked him. They wouldn't have spoken so much nonsense. He had only killed a black tiger that couldn't even be considered a wild beast, but they actually wanted him to leave his storage pouch. Did these 3 fellows really think that they had him for sure? If you want my things, you have to pay a price. Furthermore, this price is not something you can afford. Gu Fei said coldly. He didn't want to attack. This place was too close to Red Moon City. Gu Fei wanted these people to know when to retreat. If these 3 black-robed demonic masters were from one of the factions in Red Moon City, killing them would be very troublesome for him. Gu Fei didn't want to cause more trouble. Of course, he wasn't someone who was afraid of trouble. "Kid, you're so arrogant." The black-robed demonic master was even more afraid of Gu Fei. In the face of 3 demonic masters, this young man was still so calm. It really made them feel uneasy. In the extreme north demonic region, there was only the strong and the weak. Could it be that this young man in front of them was a hidden expert? He was so young, but it didn't seem like it. Gu Fei, who cultivated the ancient martial arts cultivation method, had his physical body as the source of his power. As long as he deliberately suppressed his cultivation base, even a void controlling realm great cultivator would not be able to see through him. At this moment, Gu Fei only displayed the cultivation of the second heaven of transcending mortality realm. Even so, it was enough to make the 3 black-robed demonic masters very afraid. The reason why they didn't directly deal with Gu Fei was because they didn't have the confidence to kill Gu Fei in an instant. If they were to fight, it would definitely alarm the experts in Red Moon City. These 3 black-robed demonic masters were the hunters that those low-level demonic cultivators would turn pale at the mention of. They roamed around every human settlement, especially hunting people like Gu Fei who were alone. However, this time they kicked an iron plate, and they didn't even know it. Boss! The black-robed demonic master with the lowest cultivation seemed to be a little anxious. He gave the black-robed demonic master a look. Swish! Without waiting for the black-robed demonic master to say anything, Gu Fei already rushed over with lightning speed. Since these people refused to retreat, then he could only kill them. Gu Fei left an afterimage in the dense forest as he struck out with a palm blade. It was as if a bolt of lightning had suddenly burst out in the forest. In the dazzling light, the trees collapsed one after another, and the wind blew violently. Gu Fei was a decisive person. Once he made up his mind, he immediately attacked. He didn't say anything else. He could already tell that these 3 people weren't good people. There was no doubt that he was at the peak of the 3rd sky of transcending mortality realm. The fierce blade light instantly enveloped the 3 black-robed demonic masters. Shit! The black-robed demonic master was shocked. At this moment, he realized that he had made a mistake. The person he was facing wasn't an ordinary demonic master of the transcending mortality realm. Roar! Under the blade light, the 3 black-robed demonic masters roared in anger and attacked at almost the same time. At this moment, they could feel Gu Fei's terrifying battle power. Wang! A sword light surrounded by demonic energy shot out from the demonic master's hand. With a piercing sound, it blocked in front of them. As for the other 2 devil masters, they each took out a devil flag. As they waved the devil flag, it seemed as if countless devils were rushing out from it. They let out heart-palpitating devil howls, and layers of devil chi surrounded the 3 of them. The other demonic master directly summoned a faint demonic soul, which pounced towards Gu Fei. Boom! With a loud sound, the trees in a radius of tens of feet were instantly destroyed. The terrifying energy that was released caused the ground to shake violently. The blade light that Gu Fei shot out shattered in the air, while the 3 black-robed demonic masters staggered back. The 3 of them, working together, seemed to have suffered a huge impact. Gu Fei strode forward and directly punched. His fist directly passed through the sword light in front of the black-robed demon master and directly hit the demon master's chest. Kacha-kacha! The sound of bones breaking could be heard from the demonic master's body. In the dark forest, the sound was extremely piercing. The black-robed demonic master didn't expect that Gu Fei would be able to ignore the sharpness of his demonic sword and heavily injure him. Furthermore, when his demonic sword landed on Gu Fei's arm, it was as if it had landed on a piece of godly metal. It didn't cause any damage to Gu Fei. Ah! The demonic master cried out in pain, his face contorted. Chapter 289. Gu Fei's punch seemed to be extremely powerful, but it was actually a hidden force. The force of the punch penetrated directly into the body of the black-robed devil master. Not only were his sternum broken, his internal organs were also turned to mush, and his vitality was instantly cut off. Because it was a hidden force, the violent force of the punch only exploded in the body of the black-robed devil master. It did not cause him to be sent flying. Just as the black-robed devil master was hit in the chest and screamed in pain, a palm had already silently pressed on his dantian. Gu Fei did not hesitate. The force of his palm instantly surged out, directly shattering the devil core in the Devil Master's dantian. The Devil Master did not even have time to think before he went limp. The other two Devil Masters were immediately frightened out of their wits by the scene in front of them. One of the Devil Masters unfolded the dark devil flag that was surrounded by devil chi. It wrapped around himself and turned into a surging devil chi. He rushed into the sky, trying to escape. The other Devil Master directly merged with the powerful devil soul that he had summoned. Terrifying energy waves immediately erupted in his body like a volcano. The black robe on his body instantly turned into ashes, revealing his true appearance. It was a young man who could be considered delicate and handsome. It's too late to escape now. If you had known this would happen, you should have retreated just now. Gu Fei laughed coldly. 5 faint sword shadows appeared in the colorful light outside his body. At this time, the Devil Master who had turned into a devil chi and rushed into the sky with the devil flag had already rushed out hundreds of feet away. Unhurriedly, Gu Fei pointed at the demonic aura that was escaping rapidly in the sky. A fire-like sword shadow immediately soared into the sky. As if it had shattered the void, it instantly caught up with the demonic aura that was as dark as ink in the sky. The fire elemental sword chi directly pierced through the devil chi. A shrill scream came from the devil chi, and a spray of blood sprinkled from the sky. A broken devil flag and 2 pieces of a corpse fell from the sky. With just one sword, Gu Fei instantly broke the Devil Master's Devil Dao magic treasure and killed him on the spot. Even the Essence Soul Devil Core did not escape. His body and soul were both destroyed. Roar! The Devil Master who had fused with the Devil's soul roared madly. His power had been raised to the extreme, and his entire body seemed to have expanded, turning into a 3-meter-tall giant with muscles as sturdy as a horned dragon. His clothes had already been torn to shreds, and frightening, purplish-black, demonic patterns appeared on his terrifying demonic body. A wild and violent aura swept out from his body. It was as if he had transformed into a peerless demon. Even Gu Fei couldn't help but be secretly alarmed when he saw this scene. Gu Fei discovered that among the 3 black-robed Devil Masters, the Devil Master with the lowest cultivation base, after fusing with the summoned Devil Soul, his strength actually skyrocketed. First firmament, second firmament, third firmament, all the way to the 4th firmament before the fiendish master's strength gradually stabilized and stopped rising. This was unbelievable. What kind of secret technique was this? Gu Fei found it hard to believe that there was such a technique in this world that could raise a person's strength by 3 whole levels. What kind of concept was this? Within the same level, no one would be a match for him. If this guy's cultivation base was the same as Gu Fei's at the 3rd firmament of the Ascended Mortality Realm, then if he used this secret technique, even Gu Fei wouldn't be a match for him. Roar! The mutated Devil Master roared towards the sky. The loud sound reverberated in all directions and could be heard clearly within a radius of 10 miles. On the tower of the Red Moon City, more than 10 black-armored city guards looked in the direction of the sound in shock. Then a blood-red light flew out from the tower, turned in the air, and disappeared from the Red Moon City. In the dense forest, Gu Fei felt a dangerous aura from the mutated Devil Master. Who? The mutated Devil Master directly waved his fist and smashed it towards Gu Fei. He seemed to have gone mad, and his blood-red eyes emitted 2 frightening rays of blood-red light. Come at me. Gu Fei growled. He did not retreat, but instead he took a step forward and punched out with his right fist, meeting the mutated Devil Master's fist. Boom! Like 2 pieces of godly metal colliding, the 2 completely disproportionate fists instantly collided. This was the most direct and purest contest of strength. Faintly, a circle of transparent ripples that could be seen with the naked eye spread out from the point where the 2 fists collided. In the next moment, the 2 figures instantly separated. The mighty power of destruction instantly destroyed everything in the surroundings. Everything that had a shape was crushed into pieces. A deserted area that was dozens of feet in diameter appeared in the dense forest. The terrifying power that was released directly turned the forest into a part of the desert. It was a pity that the leader of the black-robed fiends, who had lost his vitality to Gu Fei's punch and had shattered his devil core with a single palm strike, did not even have the chance to let out a scream before he was reduced to a mist of blood by the vast and mighty destructive power and dissipated in the void. Buzz! As Gu Fei retreated, the 5 sword shadows around him vibrated at the same time, emitting an unparalleled sword qi fluctuation. Then, under the control of Gu Fei, the 5 sword lights of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth shot forward. This was the first time Gu Fei had used his full strength since he had comprehended the 5 elements sword principle. The power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth was guided by the 5 sword lights. The sword lights shone brightly and chased after the mutated Devil Master, like a meteor chasing the moon. Without any suspense, the 5 sword lights were extremely fast. The mutated Devil Master could not dodge at all. In an instant, the 5 sword lights caught up with him and nailed him on the devil's body. The metal sword shadow emitted a dazzling golden light and nailed the mutated Devil Master between his eyebrows. The wood and fire sword shadows were nailed on the left and right sides of his chest. The fire sword shadow was nailed in the middle of his heart, and the earth sword light was nailed into his dantian. At this moment, Gu Fei stopped retreating and steadied himself. This series of actions happened in the time it takes for a spark to fly off of a flint, and it was completed in an instant. With a wave of Gu Fei's hand, the 5 sword lights that had stabbed into the Demon Master's body immediately flew back and entered Gu Fei's body. Bang! At this moment, the mutant Demon Master that was sent flying heavily smashed into the ground. He slid on the ground for several feet before coming to a stop. His frightened face and widened eyes seemed to be expressing his unwillingness to admit defeat. How could a Devil Master with the strength of the 4th heaven be defeated so miserably? A wisp of black qi floated out from the sword hole in the middle of the Devil Master's eyebrows and condensed into an extremely faint figure. The figure seemed to be roaring and howling. Then a gust of wind blew past, and the faint silhouette immediately dissipated with the wind, disappearing into the void. The corpse of the mutated Devil Master quickly withered. In the end, as if it had lost all its flesh and blood, the Devil Master's corpse became like a skeleton covered in human skin. Next, it was time to clean up the battlefield. Gu Fei looked around and saw a small sword surrounded by black devil qi stuck in the sand not far away. That devil sword was the weapon of the black-robed Devil Master. This devil weapon was only as long as a palm. Under the fierce attack, it was not damaged. It seemed to be of good quality. The leader of the Devil Masters was smashed to pieces, but he still left behind a small black cloth bag. It was a storage bag, also known as a magic treasure bag. Gu Fei found it nearby and took it. After that, Gu Fei also took the storage pouch of the Demon Master, who had controlled the demon flag, to transform into demon qi and escaped. Then he pulled another storage pouch from the waist of the Demon Master, who had transformed into demon qi. Originally, Gu Fei wanted to take the broken devil flag. However, the devil flag had been pierced by the sword qi, and the flag was almost broken into 2/3. This magic treasure of the devil path was obviously useless. Therefore, Gu Fei did not take the devil flag. After taking all the things that he thought were valuable, Gu Fei turned around and left without looking back. The hunter was the one being hunted. How ironic. As the saying goes, if you walk too much at night, you will also run into ghosts. This time, the 3 black-robed Devil Masters had kicked an iron plate and provoked someone they should not have provoked. This price was undoubtedly huge, so huge that they even lost their own lives and ended up in a miserable state of being annihilated in a puff of smoke. The battle between cultivators was extremely cruel, especially the battle between experts. The defeated party did not die in the ordinary sense. Instead, it was the most complete destruction, with both body and soul destroyed. Just as Gu Fei left, a few figures rushed out of the Red Moon City and headed in the direction of the strange fluctuations in the dense forest. Although the battle in the dense forest was very short, it still alarmed the experts of the Devil Path in the Red Moon City. However, at this time, Gu Fei had already walked far away. He walked out of the dense forest and arrived near the gate of the Red Moon City. He found that the city tower was brightly lit and there were soldiers in dark armor patrolling with spears in their hands. The atmosphere seemed to be a little tense. The tall and thick city gate was tightly shut. Unless one directly crossed the tall city wall of the Red Moon City, it would be impossible to enter the Red Moon City. Gu Fei knew that in such a huge city, there were definitely experts guarding it. He did not want to alarm the experts of the Red Moon City, so he retreated into the dense forest. He stopped at the foot of a small hill in the forest and sat cross-legged under a large tree that would take several people to wrap their arms around. He did a simple count of the spoils of war. Gu Fei noticed that there were quite a lot of things in the storage pouches of the 3 black-robed devil masters. There were a lot of refining materials, various bottles and jars of pills, a few magical treasures, a few stalks of heaven and earth spirit herbs, and even a few scrolls. Different from the magic scrolls that sealed the power of spells, the scrolls all emitted the fluctuations of Devil Path power. They were scrolls made by people of the Devil Path. However, Gu Fei found a large stack of gold and silver notes in each of the 3 storage bags. Gu Fei knew that gold and silver were the common currency in the secular world. However, a cultivator should be very indifferent to money. Why would he need so much money that circulated in the secular world? After counting the spoils of war, Gu Fei closed his eyes and meditated under the tree. He operated the Xian Qi and began to cultivate. He planned to enter the Red Moon City after daybreak. Soon, Gu Fei was enveloped by the spiritual energy that gathered from all directions. Gu Fei's figure also became blurred. Chapter 290. On the path of martial arts, the physical body was a treasure trove that contained endless power. It was the source of power. As one's cultivation increased, warriors who succeeded in their cultivation would develop their own magical powers, and their skills would approach the way. Gu Fei had already cultivated his physical body to the point that it was transparent inside and out. He could draw spiritual qi from all directions into his body, and use the warrior's spiritual qi in his body to communicate with the outside world, drawing power from the outside world for his own use. This was the magical power that was gradually derived when the physical body was cultivated to a certain level. No one knew how many mysteries there were about the physical body. The most mysterious thing in the world was not an unsolved mystery, nor was it the secret of heaven and earth, but the human body itself. On the path of martial arts, one did not cultivate the primordial spirit, did not form the nascent soul, and used the physical body as the source of power. This was an extremely difficult path. Those who did not have great perseverance and wisdom would only have a shallow taste of it, and they would never go far on this path. Gu Fei did not know if he had great perseverance, nor did he know if he had great wisdom. He only knew that he had to move forward bravely, because he wanted to become a strong cultivator who was above everyone else. On Taishan Mountain, before he obtained the Yin-Yang Jade Pendant, he was a cultivation maniac, a good-for-nothing whose cultivation was at the bottom of his peers. Cold eyes, ridicule, disdain, sympathy, there were all kinds of people who looked at him. His cultivation was low, and he was destined to be bullied. There was nothing to say about this. After leaving Taishan Mountain, Gu Fei truly realized that the law of survival in the world of cultivation was cruel. This was a world where the weak were prey to the strong. The strong could dictate the fate of the weak, even life and death. The weak did not have the right to control their own fate, and they were the stepping stones of the strong. Gu Fei wanted to become stronger. He wanted to become so strong that no one could threaten him. At that time, he would probably be able to relax. In the dark, at the foot of the hillside, at the bottom of the tree, the rich spiritual qi rippled like water. Specks of spiritual light floated around Gu Fei like fireflies, constantly entering his body. His body was like an invincible hole, swallowing the spiritual qi that gathered from all directions. Above the surrounding vegetation, wisps of spiritual qi overflowed, and there seemed to be a faint green mist floating. In the forest, the power of the wood element was full of vitality. This was the power of life among the 5 elements, and it was of great benefit to Gu Fei, making his vitality even more vigorous. Of course, the other spiritual qi floating in the void was also gathering toward Gu Fei. Within the extreme northern demon region, it was only at this time that Gu Fei dared to draw in the world's essence to temper his body. This was because there was no demonic nature near Scarlet Moon City. The 1,000-kilometer radius around the giant city was completely different from the boundless barren landscape of the outside world. It was as if one had entered another world. It was an oasis in the boundless wilderness, a paradise outside of the mortal world. In the area outside the giant city, there were actually many small towns, and the people living in these towns were mostly normal people. The dense forest outside of the Red Moon City was deserted. Furthermore, the forest had a radius of at least 10 miles. Although the battle between Gu Fei and the 3 black-robed devil masters had alarmed the experts in the Red Moon City, no one had found any traces of Gu Fei. When the eastern sky started to turn white and the night was dispelled by the light, Gu Fei, who was in a meditative state, opened his eyes. A faint 5-colored glow was hidden in his eyes. He stood up from under the tree, and the sound of bones cracking came from his body. I'm still at the peak of the 3rd sky of the Ascended Realm. After comprehending the 5 elemental sword Tao, it only increased my state of mind, but my cultivation doesn't seem to have increased at all. It looks like I won't be able to break through in a short period of time. Gu Fei murmured to himself as he sensed the state of his body. In this period of time, his cultivation had increased too quickly, so much so that his state of mind couldn't keep up with the increase of his cultivation. This made him unable to truly control his new power. However, ever since Gu Fei comprehended the profundity of the 5 elements sword principle after his battle with the 2 demon masters in a town, his mental state had risen to a new level even though his strength did not improve. Only when one's state of mind and cultivation combined perfectly would one be able to unleash the greatest power. The change in his state of mind had increased Gu Fei's state of mind. At this moment, he could be considered to have truly controlled the power of the peak of the Ascended Realm. The tall and heavy gates of the Red Moon City were already wide open, and the streets were filled with people. Gu Fei walked out of the forest outside the city and walked on the main road towards the Red Moon City. Very quickly, he arrived at the northern gate of the Red Moon City. With his cultivation, he was already able to control every muscle and bone in his body at will. In order to prevent the people from the 6 demonic paths palace from discovering his whereabouts, Gu Fei purposely moved his flesh and bones, changing his physique and appearance. Moreover, he purposely suppressed his cultivation to be between the 5th and 6th sky of the awakened realm. Even if someone who knew Gu Fei walked past him, they definitely wouldn't be able to recognize him. Gu Fei wasn't worried about being discovered by the 6th demon palace. He walked across the drawbridge, passed through the moat, and entered the city gates. For a lone traveler like him, there weren't any guards that came out to stop or interrogate him. Once he entered the Red Moon City, he saw an endless stream of horses and carriages. The streets were bustling with people, and it was a bustling scene. There were many shops on both sides of the street, and the sound of hawking rose and fell. It was hard to imagine that he could see such a scene in the extreme North Demon region. Gu Fei felt a trace of familiarity. The Red Moon City seemed to be somewhat similar to the Dragon Emperor City in the southern wilderness. Both were bustling huge cities. The streets were crowded with people of all ages and genders. There were people with blonde hair and blue eyes, and people with black hair and yellow skin. There seemed to be many different races gathered here, and people of different skin colors. It seemed to be a place where many races lived. As Gu Fei walked through the crowd, he was really dazzled. These days he had been walking in the wild woods. Entering such a big city really made him feel like he had been in another world. However, it was a huge city in the extreme North Demon region, and its population was far less than that of the cities in the Central Plains. However, it still had a population of hundreds of thousands. In the extreme North Demon region, it was definitely a huge city in name and in reality. After all, in the extreme North Demon region, except for the area where the huge city was located, the other places were all barren lands shrouded in bitter cold. It was simply not suitable for ordinary people to live. After changing his appearance, Gu Fei walked on the street of the Red Moon City like an ordinary person. No one would notice him. Unconsciously, he had walked more than half of the street. At this time, Gu Fei discovered that not far away on his right, there was a 9-story restaurant. The Red Moon Restaurant. Since this restaurant dared to be named after the Red Moon City, it was already extraordinary. The Red Moon Restaurant was very famous. 9 was the limit of numbers, the meaning of supremacy. However, this restaurant had 9 floors. What was the meaning behind it? Even if one thought with their toes, they would know. It was rumored that the backer of the Red Moon Restaurant was the city lord of the Red Moon City. Different from the Central Plains, in the extreme North Demon region, the city lords of the 9 huge cities were equivalent to emperors. They were definitely the most powerful people in the huge cities. They had the highest status and the greatest influence. They controlled the life and death of all the civilians in the huge cities. With such a background, the Red Moon Restaurant not only became a good place for the aristocrats in the city to gather, but also a good place for cultivators to gather. However, this was not a place that ordinary people could enter. Just as Gu Fei arrived near the Red Moon Restaurant, there were a few aristocrats in the city talking loudly on the 8th floor. Their voices came from the window facing the street. I heard that there were masters fighting outside the city last night. Hey, you're really well informed. You actually found out about what happened last night outside the city so quickly. What masters were fighting in the forest outside the city? I don't know. I heard that at least 3 demon masters died. It can't be. Gu Fei was about to leave when he happened to hear these words coming from the Red Moon Restaurant. These people couldn't be talking about the 3 black-robed demon masters that he killed last night, could they? Gu Fei pondered for a moment before he headed straight for the Crimson Moon House. However, just as he was about to enter the Crimson Moon House, he was stopped by 2 handsome, yellow-clothed young men outside the door. Gu Fei couldn't help but feel a little displeased. However, what one of the young men in yellow clothes said next made Gu Fei's mood rise from displeasure to anger. This is not a place you should be. Get out of my way, the young man in yellow clothes said. So what if I must go in? A cold light flashed in Gu Fei's eyes as he said in a deep voice. Even a doorkeeper dared to speak to him like this. He really didn't know what was good for him. What Gu Fei didn't know was that the reason why he was looked down upon by the 2 doorkeepers was because they thought he was an ordinary cultivator with low cultivation and not an expert at the 3rd sky of the ascended mortality realm. If Gu Fei revealed a strong aura, these 2 doorkeepers would definitely not dare to stop him. Kid, don't refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. In the Red Moon City, no one dares to behave atrociously in our Red Moon Restaurant. The other young man in yellow clothes said with disdain. Outrageous. Just when Gu Fei was about to explode, he suddenly felt a few strong divine senses coming from upstairs and sweeping towards him. This was definitely something that only an expert could do. Gu Fei couldn't help but be shocked. It seemed that this was not as simple as a restaurant. Those divine senses flashed and disappeared in an instant. However, Gu Fei had already become vigilant. He deliberately cursed a few times and then walked away without batting an eyelid. Such a country bumpkin wants to enter our Red Moon Restaurant. He must be blind and muddle-headed. If he walks any slower, I will even break his legs." The two young men in yellow clothes scolded from behind. Even the two doorkeepers were so domineering. It could be seen that the Red Moon restaurant was definitely not ordinary. At this moment, Gouffé suddenly saw a familiar person walking past him. This person was a young man in white clothes with an ordinary appearance. Behind the young man was a middle-aged scholar in green clothes with a feather fan. Chapter 291. Chu Tian. Gouffé immediately recognized this ordinary-looking youth in white clothes. He was the young master of Rising Sun Business Group that he met on the way to Dragon Emperor City in southern wilderness. The azure-clothed scholar beside Chu Tian, who held a feather fan and had an otherworldly temperament, was the Mr. Ning who had once saved Chu Tian from Gouffé. How could they appear in the Red Moon City of Northern Demon Domain? Gouffé couldn't help but be astonished. Suddenly seeing Chu Tian reminded him of another person he met on the way to the southern wasteland. "I wonder how she is now." A weak figure appeared in Gouffé's mind. Although Gouffé had changed his look, Chu Tian and Mr. Ning didn't recognize Gouffé. They directly passed by him and walked towards the Red Moon Hotel. Seeing that Chu Tian was heading for the Red Moon Hotel, Gouffé couldn't help but ponder as he watched Chu Tian's back. Then he suddenly strode into an alley on the side of the street. At this moment, Chu Tian, the young master of Rising Sun City, and Mr. Ning, the middle-aged scholarly man, had already arrived in front of the Red Moon Hotel. They were also stopped by the two youths in yellow clothes. However, the two youths in yellow clothes who were fierce and domineering towards Gouffé just now had changed their expressions. They said to Chu Tian with a respectful smile, "Child, please show your jade plate." It turned out that entering the Scarlet Moon house required a certificate. The two guys guarding the door noticed that although Chu Tian's appearance was not outstanding, the aura of an aristocratic family's descendant that he unconsciously exuded was not something that could be faked. Now that they could welcome guests in the Red Moon Hotel, they must be proficient in observing people's words and expressions. They clearly knew who they could offend and who they could not provoke. Chu Tian reached into his bosom and was about to take out the jade tablet when he suddenly stopped and looked behind him suspiciously. At this time, Mr. Ning also noticed Chu Tian's strange behavior. "Child, didn't you bring your jade plate? Without the identity jade token to enter and exit the Crimson Moon Lodge, we can't let you in." One of the yellow-clothed young men was still polite, but when he saw that Chu Tian didn't take out the jade token, his attitude changed. Although the Scarlet Moon House was just a restaurant, it was the most famous restaurant in the Scarlet Moon City. Those who could enter the Scarlet Moon House were all people with status. What proved their status was a small jade plate from the Scarlet Moon House. To put it bluntly, the so-called Crimson Moon Brothel was actually open to the children of influential families and nobles in Crimson Moon City, as well as cultivators with status who lived in Crimson Moon City for a long time. Outsiders and ordinary citizens in the city would never be able to enter the Red Moon House without being led by someone with an identity jade token. The extreme northern demon region was not a peaceful place. Although the 9 great cities were separated by tens of thousands of miles and were scattered across an endless barren land, each great city represented a superpower of the extreme northern demon region. Although there wasn't any intense war between the 9 superpowers, no one was willing to submit to the other. There were many contradictions between them, and incidents of mutual attacks still occurred from time to time. The Scarlet Moon House was the place where cultivators and the children of influential families gathered in Crimson Moon City. In the eyes of other forces, they could know the movements in Crimson Moon City from here because this was a place where all kinds of information gathered. For such a place, it was a very normal practice to implement a strict identity control. After all, no one was willing to let their opponents know their real situation. Chu Tian suddenly turned around and left without a word. Not only were the 2 yellow-clothed young men guarding the door stunned, even Mr. Ning beside Chu Tian felt it was strange. Chu Tian's actions seemed a bit unusual. Mr. Ning quickly followed. People came and went on the street. Chu Tian quickly passed through the flow of people and then suddenly turned into an alley beside the street. Mr. Ning followed closely behind Chu Tian. He didn't dare to go far, and he didn't dare to let Chu Tian out of his sight. This place was different from the Central Plains. This was the sphere of influence of the demonic path. The people of the demonic path wouldn't talk about benevolence and morality with you. Mr. Ning was responsible for protecting Chu Tian. Even in Crimson Moon City, he didn't dare to relax. After turning left and right in the alley, Chu Tian came to a dead end. At this time, he felt that there was a person in front of him with his back facing him. This figure seemed a bit familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Mr. Ning also felt the person in front of him and immediately became nervous. From his big sleeves, a powerful fluctuation of magic power immediately came out. As long as he felt anything strange, this Mr. Ning would directly attack the person in front of him. Chu Tian, long time no see. At this time, the person in front of him turned around and looked indifferently at Chu Tian. He was not handsome, but there was a hint of resoluteness on his face. There was a faint smile on his face. You. When Chu Tian saw the appearance of this person, he couldn't help but take a step back. He pointed at this person in surprise. There was actually some fear and panic in his expression. Gu Fei? At this moment, Mr. Ning revealed the identity of this person. At the sight of Gu Fei, Mr. Ning became less nervous as he loosened his grip on his magic treasure. In Dragon Emperor City in South Wilderness, Gu Fei had defeated powerhouses of White Tigers and Rosefinch clans consecutively. Of course, he had been known by others. Of course, Gu Fei's identity was also known by others. Why did you lead me here? Chu Tian soon recovered his composure. Although there were some misunderstandings between them, they were not enemies. However, when Chu Tian recalled how Gu Fei broke into his camp and killed his guards on the way to Dragon Emperor City, Chu Tian still remembered the bloody scene vividly. This was the reason why Chu Tian was unable to maintain his composure the moment he saw Gu Fei. The impression Gu Fei gave him that day was truly too deep, to the point that he couldn't forget it, nor could he forget it. This dead end was far away from the hustle and bustle of Red Moon City. It was very remote. Nobody noticed this place, which made Chu Tian a bit worried. Nothing. I just want to ask you for a favor. Gu Fei said with a smile. What's the favor? After hearing that Gu Fei wanted to ask him for a favor, Chu Tian became less worried. Not long after, Chu Tian walked out of the alley. However, other than Mr. Ning, there was an extra follower by his side. It was a short but sturdy young man. I have not imagined that you could change your looks so well. This was Mr. Ning's comment on Gu Fei. Even Mr. Ning couldn't identify that this ugly, short, and sturdy youth was the tall one just now. The short and sturdy follower of Chu Tian was Gu Fei. After changing his look, he put on a cyan robe and disguised as Chu Tian's follower. After the three of them walked out of the dead end, they walked straight to the Red Moon restaurant. When they arrived at the door, the two youths came to greet them again. However, at this time, they couldn't recognize Gu Fei anymore. Gu Fei's strength had been suppressed to between the 9th heavenly layer and the 1st heavenly layer of the ascended mortality realm. The powerful aura that he emitted caused the two youths in yellow to look at him a few more times. They didn't feel that there was anything wrong with the extra follower beside Chu Tian. However, the short and sturdy youth that Gu Fei was disguised as seemed to be about to break through to the ascended mortality realm. At such a young age, he already had such a cultivation. The two yellow-robed youths couldn't help but look at Gu Fei with jealousy. In fact, they looked down on Gu Fei because they themselves were at the 5th or 6th heavenly layer of the awakened mortality realm. Why would they put Gu Fei in their eyes? Within the extreme northern demon region, only the most powerful was supreme. To those whose cultivation was higher than theirs, even if it was a beggar, they would still be respectful. This time, Chu Tian didn't wait for the two to speak. He took out a crystal-clear golden jade token. Then, the three of them walked straight into the Red Moon restaurant. Humph. I want to see what kind of place this is. Even the gatekeepers are at the 5th or 6th heavenly layer of the awakened mortality realm. Gu Fei sneered in his heart. When they walked into the Red Moon restaurant, the few divine senses appeared again and probed them. Gu Fei pretended not to notice, and Chu Tian didn't feel anything strange either. Only Mr. Ning furrowed his brows. No one was willing to be spied on. Gu Fei knew that the few people who dared to release their divine senses were definitely at the 4th or 5th heavenly layer of the ascended mortality realm. Only such experts could release their divine senses when their primordial spirit had solidified. He didn't know if it was because the 500th birthday of the city Lord's father was approaching, but the Red Moon restaurant seemed to be very lively. Moreover, the majority of the people were cultivators. Chu Tian didn't seem to be unfamiliar with this place. He brought Gu Fei, who had changed his appearance, and Mr. Ning directly to the 8th floor. A waiter greeted them and led them to a private room. Then he left. Not long after, a servant brought fragrant tea. Gu Fei sensed that most of the private rooms on the 8th floor had powerful auras leaking out. Obviously, the people in the private rooms not only had extraordinary identities, but also had extraordinary cultivation. And the 9th floor seemed to be blocked by some kind of power. He couldn't sense any auras at all. This made Gu Fei feel a little uneasy. Was the owner of the divine senses on the 9th floor? The person you're waiting for seems to be late. Gu Fei casually sat down opposite Chu Tian. He picked up the tea on the table and swallowed it in one gulp. What a waste of God's gifts. Do you know that this is ice mist tea? Even in the Central Plains, only the relatives of the emperor can taste it? Mr. Ning couldn't help but shake his head when he saw Gu Fei drinking like an ox. Ice mist tea. Gu Fei was startled. Sure enough, he saw that the tea in front of Mr. Ning was surrounded by a layer of cloud-like gas. Icy cold. This name is quite appropriate. Gu Fei said disapprovingly. Chapter 292. Someone actually looked down on the experts of the Central Plains. Gu Fei was immediately attracted by the arrogant words outside. He had already learned from Chu Tian that many people from the Central Plains had come to the 500th birthday of the city Lord of Red Moon City's father. Although the extreme northern demon region was the world of the demonic path, there was a problem that couldn't be ignored. In this endless wild land, there weren't many useful cultivation resources. Therefore, the merchant groups of the Central Plains became the guests of the 9 superforces of the northern demon region. Merchants pursued profits. In the eyes of the merchants, the northern demon region, which lacked resources, was undoubtedly a huge market. This was also the reason why Chu Tian appeared here. However, the Rising Sun Commercial Group was not the only merchant who could do business in the northern demon region. Those who could enter the northern demon region were certainly not ordinary people. For example, Chu Tian had Mr. Ning by his side. Mr. Ning was someone that even Gu Fei could not figure out. Therefore, there were many experts from the Central Plains who came to Red Moon City. Among them, there were many young experts who came out to gain experience. There is really no one in the Central Plains. Sigh, it seems that the diabolism is going to prosper. Haha, not bad, not bad. I heard that Dong Li Patian of the Monarch City defeated the so-called outstanding successors of the 3 major Taoist sects with a blood-dissipating saber a month ago. How satisfying. Dong Li Patian of the Monarch City, isn't he the successor of the 6 demonic palaces? Who else could it be? Is there a second Dong Li Patian in the Monarch City? Outside the private room, the young man by the window was talking and laughing contemptuously. What he said was all derogatory words about the practitioners of the Central Plains. Gu Fei felt that there was a powerful aura coming from the private rooms. It seemed that the words of the young men outside had already made some people unhappy. Hearing this, Gu Fei could not help but recall the people from the diabolism he met on the Yunming mountain when he left the mountain. Could those people be the outstanding successors of the 6 demonic palaces? The strength of those people seemed pretty good, but it would be an exaggeration to say that they were able to sweep away the outstanding successors of the younger generation of the 3 great Daoist sects. Those people outside seemed to be boasting to provoke the Central Plains cultivators upstairs. With just a thought, Gu Fei had already guessed these people's intentions. Dongli Patian doesn't seem to be the strongest of our Devil Dao's younger generation. Even he beat up the heirs of the 3 great Daoist sects. The Central Plains has really declined. That's right, haha. The disciples of the aristocratic families in Hongyu City pointed their spears at the practitioners from the Central Plains. Their gazes kept sweeping across the private rooms. They seemed to have come here specifically to cause trouble. Humph! Who's farting? It's so stinky. In one of the private rooms, someone spoke like this. It was clear that someone couldn't stand it any longer and wanted to step out. What's wrong? Did we say something wrong? If you can't accept it, then come at us. Don't hide in there like a turtle. A disciple of an aristocratic family called out to the private room from which the voice had come. These youths were all disciples of the major Devil Dao families in Hongyu City. Not all of them were ignorant and incompetent. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that these people were purposely trying to provoke the Central Plains cultivators upstairs. They were eager for someone to step out. Just as the disciple finished speaking, there was a swoosh. With a bang, the door of the private room was pulled open, and a young man strode out of the private room. Dongqi Duandao, please enlighten me. The young man who walked out of the private room waved his right hand forward, and a sharp blade aura immediately cut through the air, slashing towards the disciples of the aristocratic families in Hongyu City. Humph! A firefly dares to compete with the bright moon? As he spoke, a descendant of an aristocratic family remained seated. He did not stand up. He merely waved his hand lightly. Chi! With a light wave of his hand, a dark light shot out from the tip of his finger and pierced through the young man's head in an instant. In just an instant, the young man called Duandao fell to the ground. A black hole the size of a finger appeared on his forehead. Not a single drop of blood flowed out, as if he had been burned by fire, piercing through the head, destroying the spirit, and dispersing the soul. This was the most thorough way to die. The people upstairs who saw this scene could not help but suck in a cold breath. However, those who could reach the 8th floor of the Red Moon brothel were not ordinary people. Seeing someone being killed, not only did no one leave, some people even watched with interest. The disciples of the aristocratic families were even more unbridled. The shopkeeper of the Red Moon brothel seemed to already know the identities of these people. He did not send anyone to ask. He only saw 2 waiters rush over and silently carry away the young man who had been killed. You overestimate yourself. Why did you come out if you don't have the ability? Aren't you looking to die? The young man called Zhao Mu said with a look of disdain. Then he continued to chat with his companions as if nothing had happened. Zhao Mu, your god-piercing finger has improved again. With such skills, I'm afraid you're not much weaker than Dongli Patian of the Monarch City. You should be able to sweep through the young experts of the Central Plains and the Southern Wilderness. Those youths were talking cheerfully and wittily, as if nothing had happened at all. Don't you think you were too ruthless? At this moment, from the private room that the Eastern Qi cultivator called Duandao had come out of, such words could be heard. He was the one who attacked first. This is something that everyone can see. You can't blame me. Zhao Mu shrugged and said in a relaxed manner, killing a person was nothing to him. The law of survival of the diabolism was even crueler than that of the Central Plains. In the far North Demon region, how many diabolism cultivators had not stained their hands with blood? Probably not even one. At this moment, a young man walked out of the private room. Behind the young man was a middle-aged man with a wooden expression. The young man who walked out of the private room was tanned and plump, but he was neither short nor tall. He gave off the impression that he was a kind fatty. Fatty Ling, so it's you. Zhao Mu was a little surprised when he saw the young man. It was obvious that he knew him. Someone from the Haotian trading group? The young men from the aristocratic families who sat at the same table with Zhao Mu were also surprised. Fatty Ling was famous for hiding a dagger behind his smile. Gu Fei heard everything that happened outside the private room. When he heard the words Haotian Trading Group, he couldn't help but be startled. Haotian Trading Group, surnamed Ling. Could it be that he was related to her? Gu Fei couldn't help but frown. Single Blade is a pretty good bodyguard. What a pity. The tanned and plump Fatty Ling shook his head. Zhao Mu, you've caused me to hire another bodyguard. Fatty Ling, if the so-called experts of the Central Plains are all like that bodyguard of yours, then there's no need to hire them. I'll just arrange for someone to protect you. Ha! Zhao Mu laughed wantonly. When the middle-aged man with a wooden expression behind Fatty Ling heard Zhao Mu's words, his eyes immediately emitted a cold glint that was as sharp as a blade's edge as he glanced at Zhao Mu. Humph! Zhao Mu wasn't to be outdone. He met the middle-aged man's cold gaze with equal harshness. Let's go. Fatty Ling's face darkened even more, but he endured it in the end and led the middle-aged man downstairs. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. After all, this was the other party's territory. You might be able to dominate the Central Plains, but in Crimson Moon City, even if you're a dragon, you'll have to coil up, and even if you're a tiger, you'll have to lie down, Zhao Mu said arrogantly as he glanced at the closed private rooms. His words were meant for the people inside the private rooms to hear. Zhao Mu's words immediately caused the expressions of many people on the 8th floor to change. Naturally, there were also cultivators from the Central Plains outside the private rooms. They're too arrogant. They really think they're invincible. Inside the private room, Chu Tian looked at Gu Fei and said angrily, he was also a cultivator from the Central Plains. Being looked down upon and belittled like this, Chu Tian was also angry. However, he knew his own strength very well. He wasn't a match for those people outside. If he went out, his fate would definitely not be any better than that person called Lone Blade. Gu Fei shook his head and smiled. These people are indeed very strong. They can mess around. We don't have to pay attention to them. You can even tolerate this? Chu Tian asked. He really wanted Gu Fei to make a move. Those disciples from the influential families of Crimson Moon City mercilessly mocked and belittled the cultivators from the Central Plains. Intentionally or unintentionally, they sneered at the private rooms on the 8th floor. Their mockery and ridicule angered many people present, but they couldn't do anything about it. Not to mention that these people's cultivation was very high. Just the forces behind them were not something that ordinary people could afford to offend. After all, this was their territory. As the saying goes, a powerful dragon cannot suppress a local snake. Most people had scruples and didn't want to offend these disciples from influential families. In my eyes, these people are just a bunch of ignorant and incompetent second generations. Gu Fei nonchalantly picked up the teapot and poured a cup. Then he imitated Mr. Ning and slowly tasted the tea. Bang! Someone outside slammed the table heavily. Then they heard Zhao Mu's loud voice. The person inside come out. Who are you calling a second generation? When Gu Fei heard this, he couldn't help but frown. He put down the teacup in his hand. His voice was so soft, yet Zhao Mu heard it. This person really did have some ability. At the very least, his hearing was better than others. Hee. Chu Tian looked at Gu Fei with interest. At this time, even Mr. Ning, who was leisurely sipping tea in the private room, put down the white jade teacup in his hand and looked at Gu Fei. Humph! Another guy who is as timid as a mouse. It seems that the Central Plains, the Southern Wasteland, and other places have really declined. Zhao Mu's arrogant voice came from outside again. "It has already come to this, and you can still tolerate it?" Chu Tian leaned on the chair and looked at Gu Fei meaningfully with a faint smile on his face. "Sigh, I can't even keep a low profile." Gu Fei touched his nose and smiled bitterly. Then he stood up, opened the door of the private room, and walked out. Chapter 293. After Gu Fei walked out of the private room, everyone's gazes were focused on him. Gu Fei's ordinariness shocked everyone. It was hard to believe that the person who dared to say that the young masters of the aristocratic families were spoiled brats was actually a short, stocky, and unprepossessing young man. No one could tell that this was not Gu Fei's true appearance. This was because Gu Fei's technique of changing his appearance was too brilliant. He did not need to disguise himself. He could directly change the position of his flesh, blood, muscles, and bones. In the eyes of others, this person looked like this. Humph! With a wave of Zhao Mu's hand, the table in front of him immediately flew up, heading straight for Gu Fei, who was walking out of the private room. Although it was just a wooden table, it emitted a strong wave of power and faintly emitted a layer of black light. Without a doubt, that wooden table contained Zhao Mu's power. If one was really hit by it, they would most likely end up with broken bones and tendons. "Hey!" Gu Fei chuckled and casually waved his sleeves forward as if nothing had happened. Without a sound, the wooden table that contained Zhao Mu's power turned into dust in an instant and drifted down. This scene not only caused Zhao Mu's expression to change, but also the expressions of everyone upstairs. Some people whispered, thinking that Zhao Mu and the other young masters of the aristocratic families had kicked an iron plate this time. Even those who were on good terms with Zhao Mu stood up with solemn expressions. They were well aware of Zhao Mu's strength. They could feel that this unprepossessing young man in front of them was not ordinary. Very good. Zhao Mu's expression was cold. He waved his right hand again. With a soft sound, like an arrow piercing through the void, a black light shot towards Gu Fei like a deadly lightning bolt. Just now, he had used this move to instantly kill the young cultivator from Eastern Qi called Single Blade. Now he wanted to use the same move to kill Gu Fei. "This move is useless against me." Gu Fei strode forward and pointed his finger forward. A ball of golden light erupted from the tip of his finger. The golden finger directly met the black light that was shooting towards him. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Zhao Mu's finger energy was shattered by a single finger. The golden light on top of Gu Fei's finger didn't disappear. After shattering Zhao Mu's finger energy, it became even stronger. Then, with a qi sound, the golden light shot through the air. Gu Fei gave Zhao Mu a taste of his own medicine. The dazzling light from his fingers shot towards Zhao Mu's forehead, as if he also wanted to poke a hole in Zhao Mu's forehead. Swoosh! Zhao Mu left an afterimage on the spot and avoided Gu Fei's finger energy. Then he appeared in front of Gu Fei in an instant. He opened his hand, and a vast power surged out from his hand. A blood-colored domain shrouded Gu Fei. This terrifying domain completely sealed the void where Gu Fei was in. Zhao Mu's palm had already turned into a terrifying, blood-colored vortex. The vortex produced a great suction force, as if it wanted to swallow Gu Fei. The crowd seemed to hear the heart-palpitating wails of ghosts and howls of wolves. The blood-colored world under Zhao Mu's hand seemed to have countless blood shadows vanishing. The blood-colored vortex seemed to be connected to a terrifying, blood-colored world. It was as if there were countless demons roaring and struggling. The crowd seemed to smell a faint scent of blood. It seemed that the blood-colored domain that Zhao Mu displayed was constructed from endless blood. That blood-red color was so demonic and evil that it made people's hearts tremble. However, none of these strange phenomena affected Gu Fei. He stood tall like a mountain under the shroud of the blood-colored domain. There was a faint smile on his ordinary face. When the blood-red domain emitted an endless evil aura, Wanting to swallow him up, he directly punched out. His fist immediately turned into a ball of golden energy. The power of the metal element in the surroundings was immediately drawn and gathered towards his fist. It was as if a golden sun had risen in the blood-colored world. The dazzling golden light broke through the seal of the blood-colored domain and directly collided with the blood-colored vortex in Zhao Mu's hand. It actually blocked the source of the blood-colored domain's power. Bam! There was a violent tremor in the void. The incomparably evil blood-colored domain that enveloped the void was directly shattered by Gu Fei's fist. Zhao Mu suffered a great impact. Dang, dang, dang. He retreated 7 or 8 steps and smashed the wooden table behind him into pieces. Wood chips scattered all over the ground. The disciples of influential families behind him cried out in alarm and retreated. Zhao Mu, who was incomparably arrogant and regarded the cultivators of the Central Plains as nothing, was actually forced to retreat. The people who witnessed the scene upstairs were all shocked. In the private room, Chu Tian and Mr. Ning saw everything that happened outside through the open wooden door. They couldn't help but be shocked by Gu Fei's strength. Why did this Gu Fei hide his identity and appear in Hongyue City? Could it be that the people of the 3 great Taoist schools had infiltrated the city? Chu Tian thought of many things. However, the questions in his heart were destined to have no answer. He didn't know that Gu Fei was actually alone now. He had narrowly escaped death to return to Tung Long Continent from the virtual sky world and had been separated from everyone. In the far North Devil's territory, he had no allies. He only had enemies, and they were extremely powerful enemies. Mr. Ning, on the other hand, was still as calm as ever. It was hard to tell what he was feeling from his expression. Hiding one's emotions was often a way to protect oneself. This place is too small. I can't fight freely. If you have the guts, let's fight outside the city. After Zhao Mu finished speaking, he flew out of the building in an instant. Very good. Gu Fei didn't say anything superfluous and rushed out of the building. Their body techniques were like the wind and lightning. Like 2 phantoms, they rushed out of Hongyue House, crossed the street, and flitted past many houses. Soon, they arrived at the city gate. They didn't rush out of the city gate. Instead, they directly crossed the tall and majestic city wall and arrived at a forest 5 kilometers away. Just as they rushed out of the Scarlet Moon House, a few figures rushed out from the 9th floor and chased after the 2 of them. Chu Tian and Mr. Ning also wanted to go and watch the excitement, but right at this time the person they were waiting for appeared. However, that person also seemed to be very interested in the battle between Zhao Mu and Gu Fei. Then, together with Chu Tian and the others, they chased in the direction where Gu Fei and Zhao Mu disappeared. Piercing God Finger! Zhao Mu launched an attack at Gu Fei immediately. His 10 fingers shot out 10 rays of black light. Like 10 divine arrows, they flew towards Gu Fei. The finger force was like an arrow piercing through the void. The speed was so fast that it was almost like teleportation. Zhao Mu knew that he had met a strong opponent today. He attacked with all his strength without holding anything back. It was as if he wanted to kill Gu Fei in an instant. It was still the power of the metal element. Gu Fei's hand also shot out 10 rays of golden light. He wanted to use his finger force to break Zhao Mu's finger force. He wanted to let Zhao Mu know that he was no match for him in terms of finger force. Bam! 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 10 dull sounds came out. Finger force against finger force. The black light and the golden light collided violently in the void, exploding into balls of strong light. The destructive finger force spread out, and the trees in the forest collapsed. Crimson purgatory! Zhao Mu shouted. He stretched out his right hand, and a crimson vortex appeared in his palm. It formed an extremely evil and terrifying crimson domain, shrouding towards Gu Fei. This time, it was different from the time in the Crimson Moon Tavern. Zhao Mu had no scruples and fully displayed the power of the Crimson Purgatory. A part of the world seemed to have turned into a sea of blood in an instant. The extremely cold and evil power sealed up a part of the world. What could be seen was a demonic crimson light. The crimson light was like a surging sea of blood, as if there were countless demons roaring and howling. Even though Gu Fei's mind was as firm as a rock, he felt his spirit shaking. It was as if his 3 souls and 7 spirits were about to be pulled out from his body by the huge crimson vortex. At this time, those who had been tracking him had also arrived nearby. They just saw Gu Fei's figure being shrouded by the crimson domain. Large areas of the forest collapsed under the crimson light. No one dared to go forward. Everyone watched the battle from afar. This guy is dead for sure. You should know that Zhao Mu has just broken through his cultivation bottleneck. He is already a demon master, a disciple of an aristocratic family who is on good terms with Zhao Mu said. Zhao Mu has already broken through to the demon master realm. Everyone who knew about Zhao Mu's background was shocked. The Zhao family of Crimson Moon City had produced a rare descendant. He had already broken through to the demon master realm at such a young age. This Zhao Mu's potential was limitless. Outstanding young experts had always been the focus of the major forces. For example, Dongli Patian of Monarch City was a leading figure of the younger generation in the demon path. A young expert with limitless potential, if he could truly grow up, would definitely become an all-powerful figure in the future. Just as Gu Fei and Zhao Mu were fighting in the forest outside the city, an uninvited guest came to the largest mansion in Crimson Moon City. Meng Lang, your old friend, is here to see you. A wanton laughter resounded throughout the entire mansion. A tall figure surrounded by demonic qi stood in the sky outside the mansion. A powerful aura descended, causing the maids in the mansion to be filled with terror. A cold snort came from the mansion below. Then a demonic figure soared into the sky from the layers of houses. In an instant, he arrived in front of the figure, shrouded in demonic aura in the sky. Powerful aura surged from both of them. Flying in the air, standing in the air, these two were obviously void-controlling realm demonic generals. I don't think I sent you an invitation, 7 luminaries. The person who rushed out of the mansion said coldly. This was a middle-aged man with a face as red as cinnabar. The man called 7 luminaries, let out a low chuckle before saying, "You and I can be considered old friends for many years. How could I not come to your father's 500th birthday?" When he said the word old friend, his tone was clearly heavier. Chapter 294. 2 demonic shadows that exuded a powerful and terrifying aura rushed out of the city, Lord's mansion of Red Moon City, and flew towards the outskirts of Red Moon City. In the city, the demonic cultivators with high cultivation bases immediately sensed the abnormality and were alarmed. Then they either stopped what they were doing or walked out of their secluded cultivation grounds. Very quickly, a terrifying energy fluctuation came from the wilderness 1,000 miles away from Red Moon City. There, the demonic aura was monstrous, as if there were 2 demon kings fighting, shaking the entire region. Even in Red Moon City, one could feel the fluctuations coming from that place. Swoosh! 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 Another few demonic shadows surrounded by demonic aura rushed out of Red Moon City and flew towards the place where the energy fluctuation came from. In an instant, they disappeared into the sky. Red Moon City was indeed not simple. In the city, 4 or 5 great demons of the void-controlling realm had appeared all at once. The terrifying aura that the demon generals emitted made all the low-level demonic cultivators in the city extremely terrified. On the contrary, the ordinary people in the city did not feel the terrifying aura that made their hearts palpitate. In a clinical room on the 9th floor of Red Moon Restaurant, a thin old man with blurred eyes was lying on the table. His red nose was emitting a loud snoring sound. In the old man's hand, there was a white jade wine bottle. The entire room was filled with the fragrance of wine. This wine fragrance was not strong, nor did it smell bad. On the contrary, this wine fragrance gave people a refreshing feeling as if they were in a field of flowers. What the hell are those bastards doing now? The snoring suddenly disappeared. The little old man impatiently opened his turbid old eyes and glanced in the direction of the terrifying fluctuation. Then the little old man brought the white jade wine bottle to his mouth and was about to drink, but he felt that the wine bottle was already empty. Only a few drops of jade-like wine had dripped out. It's gone so soon. He licked the bottle clean, then threw the white jade wine bottle and poured it back onto the table. After a while, the loud snoring sound rang out in the room again. At this time, many people felt the aura of the city lord of Red Moon City and another expert in the wilderness 1,000 miles away from Red Moon City. The news of the battle between the city lord of Red Moon City and the other expert immediately spread throughout Red Moon City. Many demonic cultivators received the news and immediately headed towards the wilderness where the terrifying fluctuation came from. A battle of this level could only be encountered by chance. It attracted everyone's attention and no one wanted to miss it. In comparison, the battle between Gu Fei and Zhao Mu was child's play. Gu Fei's hands shot out 2 beams of dazzling saber light, forcibly breaking through the seal of Zhao Mu's blood hell and rushed out. Then, the powerful saber chi, condensed from the sharp metal chi, was like a heavenly saber, tearing through the void, making heart-palpitating whistling sounds as it slashed toward Zhao Mu. It was still a metal-type battle technique. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Gu Fei would definitely not use other techniques. This was because he would be recognized by the people from the 6 Demonic Paths Palace. Damn it! Zhao Mu retreated. The place where he was originally standing was instantly enveloped by the dazzling saber light. The ground within a radius of 10 feet was instantly shattered by the saber light. Soil rose 7 or 8 feet high, covering Zhao Mu's figure. You are the successor of the Beitang family of the Central Plains. Zhao Mu's cold voice came out from the gray dust. His voice was calm and steady, as if he was not surprised at all. Humph! Gu Fei sneered. Then his hands drew a mysterious trajectory in the air. Among the golden waves, sabers and swords began to appear. When the young man who had agreed to meet Chu Tian at the Scarlet Moon restaurant saw Gu Fei use this ability, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Is this person really a disciple of the Beitang family of the Central Plains? The black-robed young man's eyes were like cold stars. He stared at Gu Fei's waving arm with a strange light in his eyes. When Chu Tian, who was beside the black-robed young man, heard this, he could not help but be puzzled. This Gu Fei had really hidden himself well. Even he had misjudged him. Zhao Mu's words reminded Gu Fei that he could not let others see through his identity. Letting others think that he was the successor of the Beitang family was definitely the best way to hide his identity. Therefore, Gu Fei immediately began to imitate the techniques of the Beitang family. Gu Fei's techniques were close to the Tao. The source of a martial artist's strength came from the physical body. With Gu Fei's current cultivation, he had already reached the stage where he could generate his own techniques. Imitating the Beitang family's 5 elements mystiques was not that difficult. As Gu Fei waved his hands, it was as if all the metal-type energy in the world was attracted to him. It gathered around him, forming a golden wave around him. Golden swords and sabers kept appearing around him. They were densely packed and seemed to be endless. They were not real swords and sabers, but were condensed from endless metal elemental power. Golden rays of light illuminated the world. Thousands of swords and sabers gathered together, forming a golden sea of swords and sabers. This shocking scene made the spectators in the distance dumbfounded, especially those who were on good terms with Zhao Mu. They could not help but break out in a cold sweat for Zhao Mu. You really are a disciple of the Beitang family of the Central Plains. At this time, the dust dispersed, and Zhao Mu's figure appeared. Come, let me see if the legendary 5 elements mystiques are really that powerful. Zhao Mu's expression was somewhat crazy. His right hand was swallowing and emitting a bloody light. The bloody vortex did not disappear. Evil and horrifying fluctuations surged out from his hand. However, Gu Fei found that there was also a strange fluctuation coming from Zhao Mu's left hand. Zhao Mu's left hand was enveloped by a ball of black demonic energy. A vortex formed from the demonic energy spun on his left hand, emitting a horrifying and eerie fluctuation. You are the first person to force me to use 2 domains at the same time. Even if you die in my hands, it will not be in vain. Zhao Mu said ferociously. His eyes were filled with the terrifying light of a wild beast. We still don't know who will die in whose hands. 5 elements, mystiques, 1,000 blades, and 10,000 swords. Gu Fei yelled. The metal-type energy was pushed to the peak by him. Then he decisively attacked. Of course, because he could suppress it, the cultivation that Gu Fei displayed right now was only at the first sky of the Ascended Realm. However, this kind of strength was more than enough to defeat Zhao Mu. Tens of thousands of swords and sabers shot toward Zhao Mu in an earth-shattering manner. The sabers and swords tore through the void and shrouded in all directions. Such a scene made even the spectators' hearts palpitate. Come at me. Zhao Mu roared angrily as his long hair danced in the air. Dark void, blood, purgatory. Let's see how you can break through my dark void purgatory. Zhao Mu yelled crazily. As the blades and swords slashed towards him, his left and right hands suddenly clasped together and formed a strange hand seal. Under the guidance of this hand seal, the blood whirlpool and darkness whirlpool actually started to fuse. The terrifying power of the 2 domains increased exponentially. The power of the 2 domains reformed, forming a new domain. A terrifying black whirlpool with a bloody glow appeared in front of Zhao Mu's hand seal. In the blink of an eye, it had sealed the space in front of Zhao Mu. Thousands of golden blades and swords shot into this newly formed whirlpool, but they were like clay oxen entering the sea. They were swallowed by this strange whirlpool that emitted an endless evil aura. That terrifying whirlpool seemed to be connected to another world. The fusion of the 2 domains seemed to have opened a door to hell. Countless golden blades and swords were swallowed by the whirlpool. The newly formed domain was incomparably powerful. It seemed like all the golden blades and swords were being sucked in. The huge whirlpool shrouded a part of the world. It actually blocked the sea of blades and swords formed by the thousands of golden blades and swords. This scene was beyond everyone's expectations. However, Zhao Mu wasn't having a good time now. It was extremely strenuous for him. The veins on his forehead were throbbing. His clothes were already soaked in sweat. He gritted his teeth and endured. The domain he could control had already reached the limit. The fusion of the 2 domains was too powerful. If he wasn't careful, he would be devoured by this power. At that time, he would be swallowed by his own domain. Zhao Mu was already riding a tiger and couldn't back down. Even if he wanted to stop now, it would be difficult. It had become a dead end. However, no one knew that Gu Fei's imitation of the Beitang clan's 5 elements divine ability and the mighty 1,000 blades myriad swords technique was just a pretense. Among the onlookers, no one noticed that among the thousands of blades and swords, there was a hazy golden sword shadow. Although this sword shadow was very similar to the thousands of blades and swords, there was something different about it. The thousands of swords and sabers were condensed from the endless power of metal, but the hazy sword shadow mixed in the thousands of swords and sabers was transformed from the metal sword essence of Gu Fei's new domain of 5 elements sword essence. Tens of thousands of golden swords and sabers drew golden scars in the void, and the whooshing sound of the sabers and swords piercing through the air was incessant. However, the terrifying and evil vortex in front of them was like a bottomless devil's nest. sucking all the sabers and swords into the vortex and sinking them into the pitch-black devil's nest. However, when the thousands of swords and sabers were about to be completely devoured, Gu Fei knew that it was time for him to make his move. The faint golden sword shadow that lingered around him among the swords and sabers shot out. This was not a sword shadow condensed purely from the power of metal. Instead, it was an indestructible sword intent. It was different from the golden blades and swords that had been swallowed. The faint sword shadow silently broke through the barrier of the terrifying domain in front of it. It directly penetrated the huge whirlpool and pierced through Zhao Mu's right chest. Zhao Mu only felt a chill on his right chest. Before he knew what had happened, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. His vision darkened and he almost fainted. The condensed power instantly collapsed. The huge whirlpool of death exploded. The violent power that erupted shook the heaven and earth. The area within a radius of several dozen feet was instantly razed to the ground. Chapter 295. No one saw how Zhao Mu was defeated, and he was defeated so abruptly. Perhaps even Zhao Mu himself only saw a faint golden light flash in front of his eyes for an instant, and then his right chest was pierced. The attention of the onlookers had already been attracted by the other great battle that was taking place in the wilderness thousands of miles away from Crimson Moon City. Aside from the few aristocratic family juniors who were on good terms with Zhao Mu, there were only Chu Tian, Mr. Ning, and Chu Tian's black-clothed friend who were watching the battle. The few youths who were on good terms with Zhao Mu didn't leave either. They were shocked to see Zhao Mu defeated in an instant. How could Zhao Mu, who was a devil master, be defeated? Was this practitioner from the Central Plains really so powerful? If even Zhao Mu was defeated, then wouldn't they be no match for this guy in front of them who was emitting a golden flame-like aura, like a golden god of war? At this time, the few aristocratic children realized that Gu Fei's strength was not weaker than Zhao Mu's. Moreover, he had defeated Zhao Mu, who could be called a cultivation genius among the younger generation of Crimson Moon City. Zhao Mu, at such a young age, had already broken through to the Devil Master realm. It could be said that he was an outstanding figure among the younger generation of Crimson Moon City. Except for Meng Hao, the son of the city lord, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Gu Fei defeated Zhao Mu. In other words, he had indirectly defeated all the younger generation of Devil Path practitioners in Crimson Moon City, except for Meng Hao. The domain power dissipated, and the terrifying energy fluctuations gradually dissipated. The forest was completely destroyed, and the destruction was very thorough. Within a radius of several hundred feet, not even a single blade of grass was left, and all that was left was sand. Further away, rows of trees fell outwards. Broken trees and scattered leaves were everywhere. It could be seen how terrifying the scene just now was. The power of destruction destroyed everything, including the woodland. After a while, the aristocratic children recovered from the shock and rushed to the place where Zhao Mu fell. They didn't dare to attack Gu Fei. At this moment, they were no longer as arrogant and domineering as they had been in the Red Moon Tavern. When they passed by Gu Fei, they deliberately stayed away from Gu Fei. They were already afraid of Gu Fei. In front of the strong, the weak were nothing at all. The strong could control the life and death of the weak. In the extreme northern demon region, the cruel laws of survival made these people fear the strong, and they would bully and humiliate the weak. It had to be said that the law of the jungle was vividly displayed among demonic cultivators. Is this the power of the 5 elements? You really live up to your reputation. The black-clothed youth, who was on good terms with Chu Tian, laughed as he walked towards Gu Fei. Chu Tian and Mr. Ning glanced at each other and then followed. This person. As Gu Fei looked at the black-clothed youth walking towards him, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. He saw that this person's hair was as black as ink, his eyebrows were long, and his eyes were as deep as the abyss. Since Gu Fei entered the extreme northern demon region, this was the first time he had encountered such an outstanding character. However, What really surprised Gu Fei was that this person's cultivation seemed to be higher than Zhao Mu's. Even he couldn't see through this black-clothed youth's depths. Gu Fei didn't feel any hostility from this person. The golden light that lingered around his body gradually faded away. The powerful fluctuations of power also receded like a tide, converging into his body. Haha, let me introduce the two of you. This is Li Xiao, brotherly. Chu Tian introduced Gu Fei to the black-clothed youth. This was the agreement between him and Gu Fei. In front of outsiders, Gu Fei's name was Li Xiao. The people of the Six Demon Paths Palace already knew his name. Gu Fei didn't want to attract the experts of the Six Demon Paths Palace, so he made up a temporary name. Li Xiao, aren't you a disciple of the Beitang family of the Central Plains? The youth was a little surprised. In his opinion, Gu Fei was using the power of the 5 elements. Of course, this youth hadn't seen the true power of the Beitang family. He had only heard of the name of this cultivation method. The people of the Beitang family wouldn't casually enter the extreme northern demon region. After all, the extreme northern demon region was different from the Central Plains. There were no giant cities in the area. Besides being barren and cold, the demonic nature that came from the dark was everywhere. To people of the demonic path, this demonic nature was undoubtedly a treasure. It was the key to entering the supreme demonic path. It could allow them to cultivate the purest demonic true essence. But to cultivators who didn't follow the demonic path, this demonic nature could trigger their inner demons. If it was light, their cultivation would be damaged. If it was heavy, their mind would be controlled by the inner demons, and they would walk the demonic path. Unless they wore a magical item that could eliminate the demonic nature, people outside of the extreme northern demon region wouldn't easily set foot in the area. I hope Brother Meng doesn't take offense. This is the name Brother Li uses when he travels outside. Chu Tian explained. He then paused for a moment and introduced the person to Gu Fei. This Brother Meng is the person I was waiting for at the Red Moon House. My name is Meng Hao. I'm very happy to meet someone like Brother Li. The youth named Meng introduced himself before Chu Tian could finish. I'm also very happy to meet Brother Meng. Gu Fei said with a smile. There were plenty of people who didn't want to show their true faces before they made a name for themselves. Therefore, Meng Hao didn't care about Gu Fei's concealment of his identity. This was because Gu Fei didn't deny that he was a member of the Beitang family. In Meng Hao's opinion, if a person like Gu Fei had no relationship with the Beitang family, he would definitely draw a clear line between himself and the Beitang family. However, this time, Meng Hao was wrong. Gu Fei wanted to use the Beitang family's banner to hide his true identity. Moreover, he was prepared to make a few powerful enemies for the Beitang family. Let's go. We'll return to the Red Moon House. Today, not only did we see that guy Zhao Mu suffer, we also got to know Brother Li. We have to celebrate. Meng Hao seemed to be very happy. Okay. Gu Fei didn't refuse. They didn't seem to have any interest in the battle of experts that was happening 1,000 miles away. Instead, they left the forest on the outskirts of the city and headed straight for the Red Moon city gate. At this time, Zhao Mu was carried out of the dense forest by the disciples of the aristocratic families. His clothes were tattered, his hair was disheveled, and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. On the right side of his chest, there was a bloody hole the size of a fist that was still oozing blood. Cough, cough. Suddenly, Zhao Mu coughed violently and coughed out a mouthful of blood. His breathing became rapid and his face flushed red, as if he couldn't breathe. Gu Fei's sword had directly pierced through Zhao Mu's right chest, piercing through his right lung. Blood continued to gush up his throat, making it difficult for him to breathe. If anyone else had suffered such a serious injury, they would have long been on the verge of death. However, it has to be said that the life force of a Devil Master was very strong. It was so strong that even a fatal injury wouldn't endanger their lives. A Devil Master who had condensed a Devil core in his body would gradually transform and become stronger under the effect of the devil core. His life force would be exuberant, and his injured body would quickly recover under the nourishment of the devil core. Of course, for a devil master who only cultivated the primordial spirit, condensed a devil core, and then gave birth to a devil infant, the body was just a cauldron that had to be abandoned sooner or later. As a result, although the physical body of a devil master, devil Tao, cultivator had undergone a transformation under the nourishment of the devil core, and his physique had improved, it was still not as powerful as Gu Fei's 5 elements martial body, which used his physical body as the source of power. Actually, with Gu Fei's cultivation, if he wanted to kill Zhao Mu, it could be said to be as easy as flipping his hand. However, he didn't want to do so. He didn't want to completely offend the devil Tao forces in the Red Moon City. He had just arrived at the Red Moon City and didn't know what kind of background these disciples had. If he killed Zhao Mu, it would attract the older generation experts to deal with him, and he would be in a dangerous situation. Gu Fei had some misgivings and didn't kill Zhao Mu. But even so, Zhao Mu's vitality was greatly injured. Even if there were experts to nurse him back, he would still need a period of time to recover. At that time, perhaps Gu Fei would have already left the northern devil region and returned to the central plains. The few youths who were on good terms with Zhao Mu carried Zhao Mu and flew back to the Red Moon City to find someone to treat Zhao Mu's injuries. Of course, those people wouldn't let this matter rest. However, for a moment, they couldn't do anything to Gu Fei. The battle between Gu Fei and Zhao Mu was just a battle between the younger generation. It was very ordinary, but the battle that took place in the desolate land 1,000 miles away from the Red Moon City was a battle between true experts. The desolate land 1,000 miles away became lively. 2 devil shadows fiercely fought in the surging devil chi. They fought from the sky to the ground, from the ground to the ground, and from the ground to the ground. They rushed out of the ground and continued to fight. This area shook incessantly. The sky was shrouded by the surging devil chi, and this part of the world seemed to have fallen into darkness. The dark brown earth was covered with cracks and large pits, as if meteorites had fallen to the ground, were scattered all over the dark brown earth. There were people watching high up in the sky, but no one made a move to stop them. Instead, there were people who made a move to seal off the aura that was spreading out. Even further away, there were still devil masters rushing over from the direction of the Red Moon City. But they didn't dare to approach, because in a battle of this level, if they were unlucky enough to be affected, there would only be one outcome, and that was to be annihilated in a puff of smoke and have their souls scattered. In the terrifying devil chi that shrouded the sky and earth, the 2 devil Tao experts were moving as fast as lightning. To the experts of the Red Moon City, they were no strangers. It was a battle between 2 devil generals of the void controlling realm. One of them was the Lord of the Red Moon City, Meng Lang. The Lord of the Red Moon City, Meng Lang, was a terrifying devil general. His cultivation base had reached the peak of the 9th heaven of devil general, and he was only a step away from becoming a sovereign king, great devil. And the person fighting with him also had a great background. That person was not only one of the experts of the Devil Palace of the 6 Paths from the Sovereign King City, but also the 3rd son of the Devil Monarch of the 6 Paths, 7 Luminaries. Chapter 296. The first son of the demonic monarch of 6 Paths, Chu Go, had invited 7 luminaries. With the help of the void controlling realm 7 luminaries, Chu Go believed that Gu Fei, who was only at the transcending mortality realm, would not be able to escape from 7 luminaries' grasp. 7 luminaries had also arrived at Crimson Moon City. He had battled with the demonic dragon in the Lost Forest for a day and a night. If he hadn't been fighting with the demonic dragon, he would have rushed over to capture Gu Fei when the people from the demonic 6 Paths intercepted Gu Fei in a town. However, 7 luminaries, who was also known as the War Demon, did not seem to be satisfied with the demonic dragon. The moment he arrived at Crimson Moon City, he immediately went to find the city lord, Meng Lang. Crimson Moon City, and the demonic Six Paths demonic palace in the monarch city had been fighting for many years. Meng Lang and 7 luminaries had fought dozens of times. However, the city lord's cultivation was clearly higher than 7 luminaries. With his cultivation at the peak of the 9th heaven, Meng Lang was able to defeat 7 luminaries every time they fought. Whenever Meng Lang attacked, 7 luminaries would always find a way to retreat. This made Meng Lang very angry. Of course, 7 luminaries was the 3rd son of the demonic monarch of 6 paths, so Meng Lang did not really want to kill 7 luminaries. Meng Lang was not afraid of the demonic monarch of 6 paths. Although the demonic monarch of 6 paths was a monarch-level great demon, his cultivation had reached the terrifying half-demon realm. However, Crimson Moon City also had a trump card, which made the demonic monarch of 6 paths fearful of starting a war. If the 2 superpowers were to start a war, it would only benefit the other 7 superpowers. This was something that neither Crimson Moon City nor the demonic monarch of 6 paths wanted to see. However, although the superpowers appeared to be at peace on the surface, they were still fighting fiercely in the dark. 7 luminaries, finding Meng Lang, was an open provocation. If Meng Lang did not accept the challenge, outsiders would think that Crimson Moon City was afraid of the Monarch City. If Meng Lang were to be a coward, the Meng clan of Crimson Moon City would lose all face. The 7 luminaries forced Meng Lang to accept the challenge. Hence, an unavoidable battle occurred. However, this wasn't a battle of life and death. It was a battle to prove who was stronger. The 2 demonic path powerhouses battled endlessly. Demonic clouds blotted out the skies, shaking the world. Origin energy violently surged, turning the battlefield into a battlefield of destruction. No one dared to approach. Even the devil generals of the same level were watching the battle from afar. No one dared to stop them. No one was willing to provoke these 2 terrifying experts. 9 nether emptiness, devour heaven and earth. Meng Lang shouted loudly, and the terrifying sound waves even scattered a few gloomy clouds drifting in the sky. The figures that were exuding powerful presences that were watching the battle from afar quickly retreated. Even further away, the Mo Path Shioja below the level of Mo masters that were watching the battle on the ground immediately became restless. Those with low cultivation were directly knocked unconscious. Those who weren't knocked unconscious by the terrifying sound wave also fled far away with pale faces. Then, everyone saw that the surging demonic clouds in the sky rapidly gathered, forming 9 huge black vortex black holes that shrouded the tall demonic figure below. Every black vortex was formed from an endless amount of demonic chi. Rumble. Every vortex emitted a terrifying power that shook the void. It was as if 9 incomparably huge emptiness spaces had appeared between heaven and earth. They swallowed everything between heaven and earth, both tangible and intangible. Even the void seemed to collapse. Behind the 9 large vortexes, there seemed to be a terrifying 9 nether emptiness space that emitted a terrifying aura that caused one's heart to palpitate. This scene was undoubtedly shocking. Up until now, the Lord of Crimson Moon City, Meng Lang, had finally displayed the terrifying strength of a peak 9th heaven demon general. Good. Under the 9 large black vortexes, 7 luminaries stood proudly. His black hair danced wildly in the wind. Facing the 9 large vortexes that shrouded him, not only did he not show any fear, 2 rays of crazed light shot out from his eyes. 7 luminaries' tall figure, under the shroud of the 9 nether emptiness, seemed so tiny. However, it was this tiny demonic figure that erupted with a monstrous energy wave. Then, 7 luminaries roared madly. 7 rays of blood-red light shot into the sky, instantly breaking through the demonic clouds that shrouded heaven and earth, and shot into the dark gray sky. In the dark gray sky, 7 large holes appeared. Through the holes, one could see the rare stars in the sky, stars appearing in the daytime, reversing heaven and earth. What was 7 luminaries doing? Everyone was incomparably shocked. Some people had already vaguely guessed 7 luminaries' intentions. The 7 rays of blood-red light shot into the sky as if they had triggered 7 terrifying forces. 7 brilliant rays of light shot down from the sky. It was the radiance of the stars. 7 luminaries was displaying a terrifying demonic art, causing the stars to appear in the daytime. Then he used the power of the stars for his own use. This was definitely a terrifying divine art of the demonic path. The 7 brilliant rays of light came from 7 bright, demonic stars in the sky. As the demonic stars shone in the sky, the 7 rays of light were of different colors: blood red, dark black, bright yellow, greenish purple. They descended from the sky and entered 7 luminaries' body. All of this happened in an instant. Before the 9 nether emptiness vortexes could devour 7 luminaries, the 7 rays of light had already entered 7 luminaries' demonic body. Roar! 7 luminaries roared madly, his voice shaking heaven and earth. His body seemed to have been injected with an endless amount of demonic energy. His eyes shot out 7-colored demonic light, making him look extremely ferocious. 7 demon stars appear! 7 luminaries roared at the sky. 7 rays of light immediately rushed out from his body. Each ray of light was as bright as the stars, flickering with 7 different kinds of demonic light. It was as if the 7 balls of demonic nature in the sky had been drawn over by the 7 luminaries. The 7 balls of starlight circled around the 7 luminaries, and a hazy starry sky seemed to appear around the 7 luminaries. The starry sky of the demon domain. Kill! 7 luminaries' battle intent was like a rainbow. Like a crazy demon, the 7 rays of light circling around his body rushed towards the 9 nether emptiness vortexes that shrouded the area. Rumble. It was as if 2 worlds were colliding. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Heaven and earth were collapsing. The vast and terrifying fluctuations made even the void-controlling realm demon generals who were watching the battle from afar feel shocked and had no choice but to retreat to a place further away. 2 terrifying forces collided violently. The 9 nether emptiness vortexes were blocked and stopped in the void. However, the devil's starry sky, formed by communicating with the 7 devil stars in the sky and drawing down the power of the 7 devil stars, did not gain the upper hand. The 2 powerhouses were in a deadlock. The shock waves that swept down from the sky caused the dark brown earth to tremble. The hard dark brown earth constantly cracked, revealing hideous cracks. The cultivators watching from afar retreated again and again. Everyone was shocked by the scene in front of them. For many of them, this was the first time they had seen such a terrifying scene that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. A demon general powerhouse didn't make a move, but once they did, it would definitely be earth-shattering. This was a demon general, a terrifying demon general. If a half-demon didn't appear, a demon general would already be a peak powerhouse in the northern demon domain. 9 giant 9 nether emptiness vortexes emitted terrifying energy, fluctuations that shook the heavens and earth. Behind the 9 nether emptiness vortexes was a giant demon phantom. Terrifying demonic roars came from this demon phantom. Within the pitch-black demon chi, it was as if a horde of demons were dancing. The power of the demon domain's starry sky blocked the 9 nether emptiness vortexes, locked in a stalemate. With the power of the 7 demon stars supporting his body, 7 luminaries seemed to transform into a terrifying demon god. A few beams of boundless starlight poured down from the 7 huge holes in the sky. The 7 great demonic stars hung high in the sky, illuminating the sky. In the demon domain's starry sky around 7 luminaries, there seemed to be endless stars twinkling, disappearing, and vanishing. Where the 2 terrifying forces collided, black cracks appeared. These were the void being torn apart, the cracks in space. 2 extremely formidable forces collided with each other, canceling out each other. The terrifying strength that leaked out caused cracks to appear in the void. However, in the end, the Scarlet Moon City, Lord Skill, was superior. The strength of a peak ninth heavenly layered demon general shook the heavens and earth. The 9 nether emptiness vortexes trembled again and again before they began to fall down once more. The demon domain's starry sky around 7 luminaries began to collapse. Damn it! 7 luminaries roared in indignation, desperately drawing the power of the 7 demon stars in the sky to his body. However, as the power of the 7 demon stars in the sky increased and became stronger, 7 luminaries' demonic body gradually could not withstand it. He desperately urged the power in his body, causing the muscles on 7 luminaries' body to swell. Veins that resembled dragons surfaced on his skin. The endurance of his body had reached its limit. 7 luminaries lose. Mang Lang's mighty voice came from the 9 nether emptiness vortexes, spreading to the heavens and the earth. Rumble. The 9 nether emptiness vortexes, like a bottomless abyss, swallowed 7 luminaries. The heavens and earth shook, and the demon domain's starry sky around 7 luminaries immediately dimmed. The illusory stars were continuously destroyed. I've been in seclusion for 100 years, painstakingly practicing my divine ability, but I'm still not Mang Lang's opponent. I'm not willing to accept this. 7 luminaries seemed to have gone mad. He decisively cut off the power of the 7 demon stars that were descending from the sky. Although 7 luminaries was known as the war demon, he was not a guy with a big head and no brain. Since he knew that he was no match for Mang Lang, he retreated as expected. After cutting off the connection with the 7 demon stars in the sky, 7 luminaries bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Then his body turned into a bloody light as he executed the heavenly demon blood flight escape technique and rushed out of the demon domain's starry sky. Mang Lang, the next time we fight, I'll definitely trample you under my feet. 7 luminaries, who had turned into a bloody light, instantly went far away. It was impossible to stop him. At this moment, the demon domain's starry sky that was shrouded by the 9 nether emptiness vortexes suddenly exploded. Violent energy surged out in all directions like a raging sea. Everyone turned pale with fright and hurriedly dodged far away. The 9 nether emptiness vortexes that shrouded the heavens and earth were also nearly shattered by the terrifying energy that erupted from the sudden collapse of the starry sky.